Okay. Like Silent Hill 2, I had such a good joke.
I think that exasperated exhale you just did would be the perfect intro. Just like you're about to do a response to the drama
Apology.
video.
I'm so sorry, but I watched the Silent Hill movie. I just want to
That's
come
it.
out. I want to apologize. You know, I thought about my actions, and I'm not sorry
Yeah.
at all. You know,
He's sorry that you guys were offended by his actions in watching the Silent Hill movie.
Yeah.
But moving on, he will continue to watch the Silent Hill movie.
This apology video is actually your apology. You know, I'm waiting for the people to come up and you know, give me their gratitude.
Really smart idea.
Yeah. And so if you're watching right now, go into your little comment, right? I'm so sorry. I should be recommending the Silent Hill movie to all of my friends, and then period. And then sign your full name and not your address, just your full name is good enough. I don't want to dox you. I think that, you know, probably some legal issues there or something I don't want to deal with.
So does that mean you enjoyed the Silent Hill movie?
Okay, this is my apology. I'm so sorry to the Silent Hill fandom, who I have in no way in this series ever offended, I'm sure, with my takes, but I really fucking love this movie.
Isn't it so good?
So much. There's a lot that I think is really stupid, much the same as the rest of the Silent Hill games, that I'm like, some of this shit is just stupid, and you could take it out and it would probably be a better game for it. But then I sit back and I look at the project as a whole, and I'm like, yeah, you could take that stupid shit out, but then it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
You know? It wouldn't be the Silent Hill movie.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because there is no real in between with the Silent Hill movie. People, especially if you're familiar with Silent Hill, you either hate it with a fiery passion or you really enjoyed it. And I'm glad to hear you came down on my side of the issue, because I do think it is very entertaining. But as I'm sure we'll get into, you sort of have to grade it in two different vectors, because how well does it represent the series, and then how good of a movie is it? And I mean, both, could go either way.
That's honestly kind of how I look at every movie I watch, pretty much. Like I have a letterbox where I track every movie that I watch and I rate it. And I could rate the movie on how artistic it is or how good it is, or like the sort of objective points of like atmosphere, music, acting, or whatever. Like I could rate it on how good of a movie it is, or I could rate it like on what I got out of it, my enjoyment of it. I don't know. Did you watch like Civil War this year?
I didn't. I wanted to on the plane, but then I fell asleep. Was that a mistake, or
no? It's not a great movie. Like I'd give it I'm very harsh on rating movies. I'd give it a 2.5 out of 5 and like how good it is.
All right.
But I kind of walked away from it at like a 4.5, because I really dug the characters. I really liked the storyline. And I just enjoyed it overall. Or maybe a better example for like Silent Hill horror stuff is Alien Romulus. Where like there's a couple things that I really didn't like about the movie design wise, but like I had a really good time watching it.
Fair enough.
And I feel that's kind of where the Silent Hill movie is as well, where there's like a lot of mistakes, a lot of weird choices, but I still enjoyed it for the most part. So should I take off points for it being sort of bad, or should I give it points for my enjoyment? And I fall much more on the enjoyment
question, because it'll inform where else we go from here. Have you watched any like making of content or anything for the movie?
No, I have not. I watched your video on it. I always try to watch whatever your video is to see, like, because you try to explain usually the development of stuff a little bit. But specifically with the movie, you didn't do any of that. So I got nothing in terms of how it was made, except that what's his name? Akira Yamaoka. What's his name? Is that it?
Akira Yamaoka.
Yamaoka. Except that he did the music right?
Mhm.
So his music, I know Christoph Gans, is that his name?
Yeah, that's him.
That guy directed it. Guy who
Yeah.
was in jail or something.
For vehicular manslaughter.
I'm very sorry to whichever people he killed.
Manslaughtered.
But I don't know if I wouldn't want someone who has committed vehicular manslaughter to be making my Silent Hill movies. You know,
Agreed.
like
Agreed.
who else? You know, some like normal guy? Absolutely not. But yeah, I don't know. Let's get into the plot summary. I don't want to front load this too much. I have so many thoughts. But as a general look, if you're just here to see if I liked it or not, I thought it was enjoyable. And it seems that you think the same generally.
Yeah.
All right. So we open here with I struggle to say it's a good opening. I struggle to say it's an opening at all, but it's like it's a very filmic thing to do, right? It's a sort of flashback sequence, I guess, in terms of like where the rest of the movie sits timeline wise. I guess like couple weeks before. These two parents wake up in the middle of the night. Their daughters run away. Her mother's chasing her through the woods. And they find our lovely, I forget her name. I want to call her Cheryl, but it's not Cheryl for some reason.
No. Yeah.
No,
Cheryl.
Sharon in this movie.
No, yeah. You're right.
Come on. Sharon.
My bad. Yeah.
Who is also, I just noticed this rewatching this, she goes under this tunnel to chase her into this like waterfall cavern, or not cavern, like a cliff area.
Yeah.
Under the tunnel, underneath the traffic, there's graffiti on the wall that just says Cheryl in big letters, like big red letters. Yeah.
Which is incredible to change her name.
And then
something so insignificant and then include it in the video as like the biggest middle finger.
Yeah. I really didn't understand that, because first time watching it, I kind of noticed. I'm like, oh, okay, so her name's Cheryl, but then she's calling her Sharon. And I expected them like later on to like call her Cheryl, like her real name is Cheryl or something. And they named her Sharon. None of that. Her name is just Sharon. So good, I guess. They changed everyone's names almost, of the main family. So we got Rose, the mother, going after Sharon, husband. What the hell is his name? Chris.
Yeah.
Chris De Silva. At home, I guess he's just really slow, I guess. He doesn't appear for like 3 minutes while the mother is chasing her daughter through the woods. Either way, they end up at this waterfall with this very, very large cliff on the side, which is right next to their house, I guess, apparently. And she's about to jump off the cliff. She keeps muttering like home, Silent Hill, home, which is just the cringiest, like on the nose thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Her screaming it in that voice is etched into my memory because it's just so, she could have just drawn the word Silent Hill or muttered it in her sleep, but she's screaming it at full volume, Silent Hill.
Yeah. And she's about to jump off this ledge, which like slowly turns into the worst CGI I've ever seen in my life. Like version of the Otherworld. And at the bottom is a CGI version of what looks like Sharon, that will later find to obviously be Alessa, at the bottom of this big cliff. And then she's about to jump and her mother saves her. And so as they're on the floor, finally, piece of shit Chris shows up and he's like, oh, what happened? And that's the beginning of the movie. And the mother's like, we gotta take this girl to Silent Hill. And Chris, in the only sane move that he makes this entire movie, is like, no, we should take her to the hospital, because she's losing it. And the mother's like, nah, we're gonna go to Silent Hill.
I believe that there's, and I could be wrong about this, there's a piece of dialogue where Rose says the medicines clearly aren't working. So if I was going to give Chris any sort of uh, any sort of benefit of the doubt, it would be that they have at the very least attempted this route.
Yeah.
But still, what we're about to talk about later just kind of goes beyond recklessness.
Yeah.
And it feels like a lot of this movie could have been cleared up with a stern conversation, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things, especially later in this movie, that I kind of summed it up in the Avalanche Reviews Discord at patreon.com/Avalanche Reviews. I think it is Avalanche Reviews.
Yeah.
That like there's a lot of changes they made that like from the game to a movie you couldn't have just 1-to-1. Like you got to change some things to fit the movie and fit the style that a movie requires. This opening is just not. I just kind of don't understand it. You know. I think the opening of Silent Hill, the game, is very strong, where you just kind of don't know what's going on at all. To the point where I wonder if this is like them trying to sort of have an inciting incident that makes more sense for the audience across just like pure confusion, which I can kind of get behind. But needless to say, my first watch, getting to the scene and finishing it, I was not very hopeful for the rest of the movie, which sucks because I liked the rest of the movie. And this first scene, I was not. I was like, this is going to be some Resident Evil 1 movie type quality.
It does have that feeling starting out. But Christoph Gans is not one known for the use of subtlety, and the idea of letting the viewer of the movie start it out in the way that Silent Hill 1 the game does, where they would know nothing, and eventually it would be revealed to them over time. He would not have been able to make that movie work, which is interesting because he is directing the next Silent Hill movie, which I should be way more hopeful about, but I think time has scarred me.
Yeah. Kind of, you mentioned there's not much subtlety in anything. You could take that quote and that would just completely ruin my hopes for a Silent Hill 2 movie to be good. Although I say that, and my favorite parts of Silent Hill 2 were the like emotional aspects of it, not necessarily the subtlety. So maybe someone like me will enjoy it more for that reason if he ends up focusing more on the sort of like tragic romance behind it.
Sure.
But I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Do you think we're going to see anything about the Silent Hill 2 movie at Tokyo Game Show? Because they said they would show us later in the year something.
Yeah.
And we haven't really gotten something.
I'm trying to think
yet.
If I can remember seeing any like Resident Evil CG movie stuff at TGS in the past.
Yeah.
I can't remember. And the same thing with the Yakuza. I think it's like a Netflix show or movie. They didn't show that either.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking potentially no, but that would be very cool.
Yeah, I think because I could see them just wanting to keep it Silent Hill 2 remake because that comes out a week basically after TGS.
Yeah.
But also, where else will they show? I guess I could just release a trailer in like 2 months or something.
Have you seen the production? Well, the stuff that they have out now.
I think some of it at least.
It's not very promising. It looks flat, as if it hasn't been color graded yet.
I mean,
me and your favorite son had a discussion about this when we saw it during that Konami event.
Oh yeah, the transmission.
Event. Yeah. It at first we thought that we had seen on Twitter like production stills like taken as they're filming or something.
Yeah.
But it looks like that in the trailer, where it almost looks sort of like amateurish in the sense that it's like a digital camera, and then they're out in the woods and you're seeing what a person's eye would see instead of that sort of cinematic pop kind of look to the colors.
I my impression of that was that it was just uncolor graded. Because
I hope that's the case.
This movie, Silent Hill 1, at least, I don't know. I haven't seen the second one yet. Or I guess the third.
It's
The
hard to
second
explain.
movie, the third sort of game, whatever.
Mhm.
I haven't seen that one yet. So maybe in the future I'll watch it and be like, oh, okay, this looks like dog ass. Makes sense that the Silent Hill 2 movie looks like dog ass, but this movie looks really good from a visual standpoint, save for the
It
first
really
scene
does.
that
Mhm.
kind of gives that like indie sort of vibe to
Yeah.
it. The rest of this movie, except for the CGI, looks really well done.
Mhm.
And so
Agreed.
I that's why I have hope for the Silent Hill 2 movie, like compared to what we've seen so far, because it does look kind of uncolor graded, like you said.
Mhm.
And so I'm hoping that's just, they're like, hey, we got to get a trailer out. So just, throw some raw footage or something.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, because this movie does have, for all of its faults, strong visual language.
Yes, for sure.
It is, I don't want to say it's well directed, but it is very directed at the very
Mhm.
least. There are choices here that are strong. Specifically, like in the next scene, where we see Sharon and Rose, they're sitting by a tree while Sharon's drawing some pictures on their way to Silent Hill, and this scene just looks like, I don't know, like any large budget blockbuster in a field kind
Yeah.
of scene. Like it has that money vibe to it, even if it is a very
Mhm.
simple sun in the next to a tree kind of design to it. It's still, I don't know how to describe it, except it just looks like there was money put into it.
It is
you
it's
know?
very cinematic in the way it's shot. The composition of kind of from the ground facing up towards them and
Mhm.
getting a lot of the sky in it, and during the conversation, it's a lot of close-ups of like hair falling in front of
Yeah.
someone's eye, or it just feels very, that could have been a shot from like Pearl Harbor. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
felt like that kind of like you said, just a big money cinematic shot.
It reminds me a lot of like the Star Wars prequels when Anakin or
Mm,
Padme are like in the fields frolicking or whatever,
mm.
where apparently they spent like a good portion of money editing out like bugs and things like that to make
Oh.
the scene look like better, I guess. I
Mm.
don't know, like well produced. When
Yeah.
it was really them just like in a field, and this has that same vibe where like there was a lot of work put into two people next to a tree,
Mhm.
and I think that does kind of show out through the rest of the movie. But it is weird putting these two scenes next to another where I'm like, this looks like crap. Especially that CGI dive down into the cliff with Alessa, and then
Mhm.
right into this scene that looks like $1 million was spent on like shading trucks and diffusion panels and stuff for this like
Mm.
scene by a tree. Um, what's the word? Like it like broke my neck. I got like
Yeah,
whiplash from
I
it
gotcha.
almost.
I had a similar amount of dissonance from that very first scene, in the dark. They're running around, they grab Sharon, and then in the next scene with the conversation between Chris and Rose, they're in what looks like a billionaire's project house with, like, all glass walls,
Yeah.
and I don't know what either of these 2 people do for work, but I feel like they could have thrown way more money at this Sharon problem than they
Hmm.
did.
Yeah.
It's just so wild to have them, because there's nothing necessarily wrong with living in a really nice house, but I
Hmm.
feel like it does take me out of the I can kind of understand what these people are feeling type of thing, because they have to leave their all glass home
Yeah.
with their like floating
Hmm.
staircases and stuff. It's, I don't know. It was a wild idea to put that there. I feel like Harry Mason in SH1 was a down to home
Yeah.
dude who drove in a Jeep kind of guy,
I mean,
wore a
like
brown jacket, you
their
know?
their house in Silent Hill 3 is like a small little apartment with like 3 rooms,
Yeah.
and over here in the movie they've got this like pretty much it looks like a mansion from the outside, even if it's not like
Yeah.
that big. It has like, this was made by some architect, like perfectly designed.
Mm.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I imagine it's just because the director's like, you know what we should do, I found this house, let's
Yeah.
see if we can book it, like I want to go shoot there. But it kind of makes no sense for the stakes involved.
Mm. But it does
Though,
sort of show what we've been talking about is
yeah.
he has an eye for shots and for
Mhm.
things and for locations. And sometimes they don't intuitively flow from one to the other. But when you take them as individual scenes, they look good and they've been sort of framed well. And, these are great targets to shoot in
Yeah.
if you're trying to make X movie. But when you're going to watch all these scenes strung together, there's a bit of whiplash from one to the other for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to describe it, I think. Because this, I don't know, what was the budget of this movie? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Let me see if I can find.
That'd be fun to know.
We're looking at 50 million. And this was what, 2006? So
put that in
50 million 2006 money to 2024. That's 500,000. 550. Why can't I change this? This website is horrible. 50.
To be fair, I don't know if I would be able to keep track of that many zeros either.
So 78 million about today, which is like, that's actually kind of surprising that they even got, like, who paid for this movie?
Yeah.
I kind of want to know. But yeah, 2006. So I guess that kind of makes sense because even though the CGI sucks now, there's a lot of CGI in this.
Yes.
But yeah, so I can kind of see where the produced, that almost makes me appreciate it less, actually, the more I think about it. Because I'm like, wow, this looks really well put together. It looks like they got money. And then they actually do have money. Yeah. So I'm a little less impressed, I think, maybe. But either way, they're by this tree. Sharon, I'm gonna keep messing up their names. While I was writing my notes, I kept calling the daughter Rose because that makes more sense to me for some reason, and the mother Sharon.
She does kind of look like a rose.
Yeah. And I kept doing that throughout the script, so I'm gonna be messing this up the whole time.
Fair enough.
But Sharon is drawing a little photo by the tree. And her mother's like, we're going to take you on a, so the dialogue in this movie, so bad. I'm going to be honest. She's like, honey, do you know we're going on a special trip? And the daughter's like, no. And then she's like, we're going to Silent Hill. Sometimes you sleepwalk. And then Sharon's like, I don't remember. And then there's kind of this moment of just nothing, like she says the line and then they're going to like the next shot, but like they didn't edit it together appropriately. So like there's this like second of just no one's reacting or talking. And it happens a few times in this movie. Which, another tangent, I'm so sorry. This is going to be unwatchable with the amount of tangents we have, but
oh yeah,
this got me thinking about like how bad dialogue is in movies a lot of the time. This movie is a pretty bad offender, I think. Where like I don't get how writers and directors, how do you make a movie with bad dialogue? Like I don't understand how, because I write everything in the voice that I talk in. Like when you read it out on a piece of paper, it sounds exactly the same pauses I put into the writing, the same, like almost stuttering. I pretty much, but I write like a lot. How do you write writing that feels bad? Because I understand it when it's like the Silent Hill games, because you have Japanese-born writers writing in Japanese, and then either they're translating it with probably not the greatest knowledge of English, or a translator is doing it who might know English really well but doesn't know the original intent as well. And so there's going to be some weird mix-ups there. But like this movie, there's, I don't know, $78 million. There's probably hundreds of people on set that spoke English. How do you get bad dialogue? I just don't understand.
It definitely doesn't help that Sharon's actress, although looking perfectly the part and being cute as a little button, she was not good. I mean, she's a child actor, And there have been some that have done really good jobs at around her age, but she's
Mhm.
not one of them. Um, it sucks so bad because visually she's perfect for the role. She
Mhm.
just looks like Cheryl so much.
Yeah.
And you could see it working, but then every time she opens her mouth, it's super cringeworthy.
I think they kind of understood that, to be
Mm,
fair. Alessa doesn't like there are sequences where she talks, same actress for Alessa and for
yeah.
Sharon. There are sequences where she talks, like takes up most of the scene in terms of dialogue, but it's
Mm,
usually in like these dream sequence recaps of stuff, or like I guess not recaps, but like, what really happened kind of
yeah.
exchanges in the movie.
Mm,
And she does really well doing those. And I think
yeah.
at the end, when it's more like the sort of evil Alessa talking, she does really well. It's just
Yeah, I agree.
the normal dialogue doesn't really, she doesn't do as well.
Mhm.
Um, Again, that's fair. She's a kid. That doesn't
Yeah.
give an excuse to Rose's actress, or any of the other, particularly Chris, and later we'll talk about Cop Gucci,
Mm.
stupidest name ever. Um, they have that same sort of air to the dialogue where I don't know, maybe what's his name,
Gons.
Christoph Gans. Okay,
Mhm.
Christoph Gans. Um, Sounds German, Swedish or something. Not Swedish. I don't know. Where was
I wanna
he?
say he's French. I think he's
French.
French.
Christoph
Let's
Gans. Oh
see.
yeah, he is French. Okay. I
Okay,
was
there we
imagining
go.
Gans with a Z, but it's an S. So yeah, he's
Mm.
French. So okay. Yeah, maybe he completely wrote the script himself. And you know, then we're getting that trying to put it into English thing again.
Mm.
Um, but I think that's another one of the low points is the realism of the dialogue here.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so this kind of sets up, hey, this little girl should probably go see a doctor. Maybe she has
Mm.
seen doctors, maybe she hasn't. But Rose thinks it's best to take her to Silent Hill. So they look up on the little computer, ghosttownsofamerica.com, and Silent Hill, coal burning, dangerous, deadly fumes surrounding the village. That's where I'm going to take my 8-year-old daughter. Let's
Well,
go.
here's the weird thing too, is the browser that she uses to look this up on the internet looks
Uh-huh.
like I'm like Internet Explorer version 2.0 or
Mm-hmm.
something. Like it's wildly out of date for when this was made. And I remember thinking at the time, I used Firefox and I was like, this just doesn't look like the modern internet. It looks like it's on like an Apple II and the
Yeah.
pictures are loading very slowly
It, it,
vertically.
it has like the like raw HTML coded design, like
Yeah.
some like guy who's like, I don't know, how to code website.com, and then just
It's
puts it all in
very
one
weird.
paragraph.
Like there's the background of the website. It looks like a GeoCities or Angel
Yeah.
Fire sort of self-made. This is my favorite K-pop group sort
Mm-hmm.
of website. I don't know that
And
it's
it's
very
also
strange to me.
on their like sort of expensive looking laptop in their $1 million
Mm,
glass house. And they're using
yeah,
like 20-year-old web browser for some
it's
reason.
incredible. I love
Um,
it so much.
I didn't notice that, to be fair, because when this movie came out, I was 2, so I'd have no clue what web browsers looked like in 2006.
It still blows me away the offensive youthfulness of you.
Yes,
It
and I'm
kills
getting
me.
older. Like this guy. I was running your Discord at what, like 14.
Yeah.
I'd
And I
play like,
still haven't tried to groom you. It's the
yeah.
crazy
That's
thing.
I don't know.
But you are coming to Japan.
That's
So
true. So there's still time. There's still time.
there
You
is
can
still
get
time.
canceled. Um, And that's also crazy that I at 14 knew how to set up a Discord and run it better than you, the adult
I at
grown man.
35 did not.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I refused to make a Discord for years until Benny was like, I mean, I could just do it for
yeah,
you. And I was
I
like,
will
well, then of
literally.
course I'll do
I don't
one.
even care if you talk. I don't care. I just want you to link it so I can talk to all the other Avalanche Reviews people. And it worked.
And then it
and he
became
still
a
doesn't
nice
show up.
platform. Well, first off, I've showed up today. and then in 2 more months, I'll be back.
You sent one GIF today.
It was a GIF, and it was a Mark Wahlberg GIF.
You sent one GIF
that stays in heavy rotation.
Yeah. But okay. We're headed to Silent Hill. This lady, she needs to remember for some reason. That's going to help her. So they're on their way and they stop at this diner. Rose needs to get some gas for the car. And that picture she was drawing earlier by the tree, Rose goes to the back of the car and she kind of pulls it out. And instead of this beautiful landscape with like a cat or whatever, it's now like there are dead people and there's black crayon scribbled all over. How horrible. And another poorly written, maybe poorly acted, maybe scene from Sharon. Like, I don't remember. I don't like that.
I'm scared. And then starts like getting very vocal and loud for no reason at all.
Which, of course, obviously from afar, just looks like Rose is abducting this child. So that makes sense at least. When Sybil Bennett pulls up in her motorcycle, sick ass motorcycle, by the way. What's her name? I thought I remembered it.
She was in The Walking Dead for a while. I forget her name. She's
Hill
great.
Movie. Laurie Holden. Just like maybe the perfect casting, I think. Like,
agreed.
I think Sharon looks the part. I love Rose, but Sybil Bennett and Laurie Holden, just absolutely perfect.
Perfect.
She comes up to the car. She's like, "What's going on?" Well, Rose goes in to pay for the gas. Very funny. Rose is like, or Sharon's like, "I don't talk to strangers," to the cop, and rolls up the window in front of her. And that just leaves Sybil there, just kind of like looking at her through the window for a couple of minutes. Because they have Rose go in to pay for the gas, and they have Sybil outside talking to her. She rolls up the window, and the entire time in the diner, you can see through the window, Sybil is just like standing there looking at Sharon like the whole time. Rose's card doesn't work. Chris, I'm always going to forget his name.
Yeah.
Just
Chris found out the Rose was on the lamb, so he's like, okay, well,
I'm gonna shut down the cards. Which I guess these very obviously affluent people don't have like $20 of cash in their car or whatever. So she leaves without paying for the gas. No one tries to stop her for it. For some reason, to the point where like it felt like they just kind of forgot about it in the movie. She's like, "I'll be back," and then just leaves, and no one cares. They don't like ask Sybil, "Hey, that woman just ran away with gas," or anything. Whatever.
Which would better explain Sybil giving chase than her like intuition that this is a child kidnapping.
Yeah. So her entire "I'm gonna pull this lady over" is because Sharon was like a little cranky and like sad talking to her mother.
And you would think that would be the stupidest thing, but then even stupider is Rose thinking, "Oh no, I'll just lead her on a high-speed chase."
Yeah, I have my daughter in the front seat here. This cop's gonna pull me over for like, I guess
something
for
I can disprove.
Trying to think that I'm not her mother or something. 2 questions and I'll be out of here.
Right.
Because at this point, Rose told the clerk, like, "Hey, where's Silent Hill?" And she's like, the road's closed. You can't go there anymore. But Sybil doesn't know that. So Sybil's just following these people off weird vibes. And I feel like Rose, I feel like Rose would know that. And for some reason speeds off because I don't know. I don't want to answer like 2 questions to this lady on a bike. I don't quite understand that. But whatever. She speeds off, rams through the gates into the toxic air of Silent Hill. And Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City style, there's some like random lady on the road for some reason. They swerve to avoid her, car crash. Now we're sort of at the impetus of the game. I wrote down like they don't want to run into the person on the street. But that person's like never explained or anything. It's just like some person on the
The
road.
woman in the street?
Yeah. Like why?
I think it's if I remember correctly, it's not Alessa, it's her mother.
Oh, it's
The
Dahlia
woman
on the
with all
street.
yeah.
Okay.
It's-
Sure, I guess. Whatever. She's on the street a mile out from Silent Hill, walking from one side of the road to the other. I guess. Whatever. And now we're at the start of the game. This is where stuff starts to pick up. Where I finally actually started to like this movie. Everything so far is very like 2006 blockbuster, which I guess this movie is. But it doesn't not fall into the same traps that a lot of movies do from the early 2000s. Like, this is just the stupidest setup imaginable.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of normal for Western horror movies where like everyone is just stupid the whole time and they make the worst decisions
humanly possible.
So I guess on one sense that kind of fits that like expectation. But watching it, I'm not a huge fan. Oh, and by the way, almost forgot to mention the radio starts freaking out as they enter Silent Hill, very much like the game. Cool callback, I guess. But then it happens like 4 more times later, so I don't know why it had to happen then. Another like, hey guys, look,
I think the idea
radio.
was to distract Rose enough so that a woman running into the road would be like, oh no, I didn't see that before because my child was screaming for some reason at a staticky radio.
Incredibly like starts basically having a seizure at like the static on the radio. God, okay, I don't want to dwell too long on the beginning of this movie because I hate it. But so stupid. This is like peak. This movie's gonna suck, and now I'm starting to watch it because it's gonna suck. Thankfully, it doesn't. But if you do start watching this movie and you haven't watched it before this podcast, if you were to start watching it and you get to this point, I think you might be ready to quit. You know, like it's almost that bad. So far,
you know, honestly, and I'm coming at this from a video editing perspective. It would be really interesting to edit the movie so that it starts at the car crash, and as the story plays out, we get flashbacks to the beginning scenes.
Yeah,
I think a good editor could have made this movie twice as watchable, and it is a good movie. But like you said, that intro section, it's tough to get through, and it's a filter for people who A, were looking for Silent Hill stuff, or B, were looking for very good movie making. But if we started in medias res, like we were talking about before the show started, with the car crash, and sprinkled in between are these hazy flashbacks to the intro scene, I bet I could in like a week whip together a really good cut of this movie that was way more watchable.
Yeah. I think because the first couple scenes aren't like objectively bad or anything. It's just the fact that that's how it starts, that's how it continues, and that's how the movie begins, from one scene to the next that have no real like there's stuff tying it together because it's chronological, but there's no plot element that makes me want to keep watching. And I've had at this point 4 or 5 scenes in a row where like nothing is interesting yet. Whereas swerving, even just like a short cutscene of Rose running away from Sybil, like if you start right there, like in the rain or whatever at night, cop pulls up, tries to pull over this lady. She, speeds away, rams through a gate, crashes her car. That's infinitely more interesting than the actual beginning of this movie.
Agreed.
But anyway, we're finally in Silent Hill, like 10, 15 minutes into the movie. Rose wakes up from the car crash, thinks that she sees Sharon in the distance, runs after her down into a dark alley stairwell thing. And this is the first impetus of the Otherworld in this movie. first off, I really like the fact that it's ash in this movie.
Yeah.
In the original game, it's kind of not mentioned really what it is. I don't think Harry ever says, "Oh, this is snow" or whatever. So it very well
It is
could.
supposed to be snow.
Is it
but
supposed to be
yeah.
snow? Okay. Because
The
playing it, I'm
ash
like,
makes sense thematically in the movie, though.
yeah. In the original, I'm like, this could be snow. It could be like kind of any just like thick smoke or fog or whatever. Like there's no clear like reasoning of what actually it is, which I like. And I think saying it's snow or saying it's ash or whatever kind of detracts from that either way, snow or ash. But with the town being like a coal fire burning underneath these like toxic fumes, I think it makes a lot of sense thematically for the movie.
For sure.
And that's one of those things that I think if you took the snow from the game, which you say is how it actually is in the game, and put that in the movie, it doesn't really make any sense. You know, like it's one of those things that in the Silent Hill games, in the like dream logic that people talk so much about, and I'm so sick of hearing about with Silent Hill games. Like, yeah, it kind of makes no sense, and so that adds something to it, I guess. But thematically tying it in, I want to say is a better for a movie that only has 2 hours, you know, to explain its plot.
Yeah, for sure.
So she gets into this underworld. That's where we hear the Silent Hill sirens for the first time.
And I have to say, by the way, this is a really well done homage to the beginning of Silent Hill 1 with the cinematic camera angles of that first alleyway scene. Sharon being chased down by Rose. They do a really good job of sort of visually representing that intro sequence and keeping the almost voyeuristic nature of the camera angles inside that alleyway, the way the camera sweeps and stuff. It was very well done. And then when Rose comes up on the body, even the color scheme of the reds and browns and then the very dark blacks, it comes together pretty well, I think.
I think what you said earlier, like with the kind of the decisions made in this movie that Christoph Gans made that have a really good visual image on screen, maybe don't make sense thematically or plot wise, but like you take a screen grab and it looks great.
Yeah.
This is, I think, where the money was put into, because all of the Otherworld scenes, like the grates and the rust and everything, looks as close to the game as you could ever get something like this to look, I think. My only slight issue with it is she's running through to find Sharon at one point, and the camera does this like big swoop outward, and you see like a whole big section of the Otherworld, and it just straight up looks like a movie set. You know, like there's a lot of camera angles where it has that kind of fixed camera look, where she's like running and it'll be following her in front of her. Or like it'll be in a corner as she's walking by and it'll slowly pan, that look great. And then they like do this kind of big sweeping, almost like a drone kind of shot outward. And you can just tell it's like in a warehouse. It looks like a Halloween Horror Nights set design kind of thing. Which again looks cool visually, but then you're watching this movie and experiencing it, and it has that like haunted house vibe to it, and that takes you out of it. A lot of the things in this movie I think worked really well on paper and look good visually, but just don't have it's like no one watched the movie and was like, okay, maybe that won't work, you know, maybe we should try it a different way. There's a couple of scenes where I'm like, if someone just sat through, watched it from beginning to end and was like, okay, maybe we need to reshoot some of this, a lot of the issues could be fixed with reshoots or something. There's just kind of how the tree scene was like, this is a lot of money. It's like they were like, I want to show how much money we have, and then it just shows how much money it has. It doesn't actually.
I'm going to blow your mind here. I was going to wait to get into this, but I'm going to blow your mind, and I'm going to tell you that there were a lot of reshoots actually.
Really?
But not to fix any of the problems you're mentioning. It's because early test audiences believed there needed to be more of Chris in the movie, and a majority of the Chris scenes that you see in the movie were shot after the fact, because the movie was essentially finished and it almost didn't include Chris past the point of Rose leaving the house. And you have test audiences to thank for Officer Gucci and Chris's interactions.
I have a note later on. Let me see if I can find it. But it's along the lines of, I don't give a shit about this guy. Please stop showing him.
Yeah.
Because this movie, one of my issues with it is that it's a little too long. Like I think the pacing's good enough, but if you got rid of some scenes, it would be better and it would be perfectly watchable.
And those Chris scenes are definitely one of them.
100%. Most of the reason that it drags are those cut between scenes. Because you go from a scene like this, and I forget if there's a Chris scene right after she gets surrounded by like the baby crawly things that look horrible. They're the worst CGI I've ever seen. I watched Alien Romulus the other week, which has just the best monsters I've ever seen in anything. They're the most realistic looking aliens and creatures ever done maybe in any movie. And then I watched this for the first time and it was like the worst monsters I've ever seen in any movie. Infinite Dark, by the way, you watched Infinite Darkness, right? The Resident Evil 3D TV show from like 2 years ago.
Yes.
The monsters in that 3D animation movie look more like real life than the little crawly things in this. They look horrible.
I remember opinions being pretty polarized at the time on the CG.
Yeah.
I worked at a movie theater when it came out, and we would talk to the projectionist about it and stuff, and I got to see it early, which is really cool. But some of the projectionists was like, yeah, this is awful CGI, and some of them were like, no, this is like revolutionary.
Yeah, I can kind of see that like its use of CGI might have been like sort of groundbreaking in ways. It's just that it has the same effect again as the Star Wars prequels, where like they're just using CGI to kind of show off that they can use CGI, not that it makes any sense to use CGI.
It certainly hasn't aged well, that's for sure.
And so as she gets chased by these little baby things into a room, and they start to evaporate, and she wakes up from the other world. But yeah, I forget if there's a scene right after this with Chris, but they start to slowly introduce that he comes to Silent Hill to look for her. He's like, he drives up to the gate. Okay. Also, he drives up to the gate and there are already police there in Silent Hill. I don't know how they know to look in Silent Hill.
I think if I would imagine, Sybil had called in the chase when she was chasing after Rose.
Okay, yeah.
And then when they didn't hear back from Sybil, they show up on scene and they find evidence of someone crashing through the gate.
Yeah, I could see that. He stopped there at the gate. And then in the game, right, Harry and Sybil just gives him a gun for some reason, which is like the stupidest decision by a cop ever. Sybil in this movie, actually pretty smart the whole time. But the police are like, hey, you want to just go into Silent Hill with me? Like Officer Gucci's like, okay, we'll go in with you to this toxic fume filled city where a bunch of people died and the toxins made them like go insane and like killed a bunch of people. And they even mentioned like some kid was like thrown into a gas vent and killed. Why? Like, don't just keep him, arrest him and take him out of there. I don't understand what they're doing.
Also, the scene where he drives up on Officer Gucci is another one of those like very cinematic scenes, but in a rainy sense. It is torrential downpour, and they're like having these discussions with each other, and it feels like that one scene from The Notebook. Like it just it feels so cinematic for
Mhm.
this ultimately arbitrary interaction between Chris and the cops. I
Mhm.
don't know. That's another one of those scenes where I was just like, damn, you didn't have to, but you did.
Yeah, it was like, hey, we got, get extra $3 million. You want to like pour 3,000 tons of water on the
Yeah.
into the scene. But yeah, again, to kind of wrap up my point there, like these Chris scenes, I tried to summarize this where like I basically only have one more plot point with Chris. I just put them all together because
Yeah.
they keep going back and kind of nothing really happens the whole time. Like you could have made, I think even if you put all of his scenes together into like a block or maybe like two blocks, like one here, and then one later on,
Yeah.
it would have still been better than just kind of switching back and forth to like a minute long scene of Chris and then like 10 to 15 minutes of Rose. Because the Rose sections, like her waking up in the bowling alley after the being chased by the little baby goblin things, her scenes have like moments of relief to them. And her storyline has pacing in the writing and the places that she goes to and the people she talks to, like relief from action. And
So
then
they didn't necessarily need to break them up with the Chris scenes.
and then they go to Chris and it's like longer. Like I'm already ready to go back into the action by the time we're like 2 minutes into a Chris scene. So in my very long rambling summary, I've just kind of put all of his into one plot point from here. So focusing on Rose, she wakes up in this bowling alley, which is like, I guess the bowling alley from Silent Hill 2 for some reason. No pizza though. She didn't bring any pizza in her car. Which, big mistake by her here.
No, that's actually a smart move because Christoph Gans saved himself from all the questions of where did they get the pizza from in Silent.
Well, I mean, they could have just had a very rainy cinematic scene of her going into the back of the car, and pulling out a few pizzas or something. I don't know. They had the money. They could have done it. And this is finally where she starts to explore Silent Hill, the city. And I think this version of Silent Hill is, I don't want to say it's the best looking Silent Hill that we have in any of the games or movies that I've played so far, but it's pretty damn close.
It's pretty cool looking.
Like Silent Hill 1 has the aesthetic with the fog and everything, but it's the PS1. There's only so much you can do there. And Silent Hill 2 kind of sort of taking place in Silent Hill, but likely more in James's psyche than anything, means that we're not really seeing what could be the true Silent Hill. And Silent Hill 3 doesn't really go to the Silent Hill town much at all. And so this is like a look at the city that is actually sort of believable almost. I did find that like most of the stuff was shot in, I think, Ottawa in Canada, and like just a real city. But there's this sort of the fog, right? Or I guess the ash in this case is so like unnaturally thick. And there's so much ash falling. Like it feels like the first game's level of fog and snow and everything somehow distilled into a movie. Where I wouldn't have thought it would be possible to get that like claustrophobic feeling. I don't know how they did that. Like, do you have any behind the scenes of like how did they?
I would imagine it's mostly post-processing. They would flood the floors with fog for sure. But I mean, I would have to assume it's just a giant soundstage surrounded by green screen that they can add, foggy details to and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure. But I do agree that it is a really good representation of a Silent Hill. And I really like the additional visual theme of it looking like a sort of like a New England resort town.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of places in New England that look like that spot and that are places that people go to just to vacation and drive boats on lakes and stuff.
Yeah.
So it feels really Silent Hill for sure.
I like it. There's a sort of oh man, I hate this word. I talked about this last time. I hate the word liminal space so much.
Mm,
It's so like meaningless at this point.
yeah.
And this movie doesn't fall into that trap. I think like you could have easily gone and played Silent Hill 1 and been like, okay, that's the feeling that these spaces emit. I think wrongly, and you could have transferred that over into the movie. But there's this quality that like this is a real town that so they explained it in the movie as like this apocalypse that had kind of come over the town or whatever. But it looks like if you took a New England town, sent it through the underworld, and then sent it back, you know?
Yeah.
And like, what is the destruction that would have come from that? And how would it look when you've had an apocalypse, you know, continually, but the apocalypse has receded for now? Kind of, it gives me very like Resident Evil save room kind of feelings, where like it's very calm, but like it looks like some fucked up shit happened.
Yeah, I could feel that. Yeah, for sure. I like that idea. That's good. It does have that. So what I like so much about areas like Silent Hill and Pripyat and Chernobyl is the idea of a place that I recognize should be populated by a bunch of people that looks like it should be. There should be people walking down the street. There are stores. They should be open, but no one's around. That sort of dissonance of recognizing the area and then being put off by the idea that there's nobody there. There's something that kind of speaks to the everyday average psychological experience. And it just toys with the idea. It's like, yeah, imagine New York City, but no one's walking through the streets. That's just, that's creepy for some reason. And you can't really say why.
Yeah. It is the best way that I can put a lot of this movie is that like, there is very clearly a love for the first Silent Hill game. The sort of later adaptations of, or actually really the early adaptations of like Resident Evil, right? Maybe they played the games or whatever, but I don't really truly believe that they knew what made those games special. And very much, at least in the theming of this movie, you can tell that like, whether Christoph Gans or you know whoever was responsible for the atmosphere that this movie has, like they played these games and they loved them and they knew what made Silent Hill feel like Silent Hill at the very least.
I agree.
And that is like the overwhelming feeling that you get from it. Even if stuff doesn't look the best all the time, it still has that kind of care put into it, which could just be the money they put into it. It could actually be a love for the movie. Either way, it's got it. And I think that's a big plus that this movie has. Same like when she keeps looking through Silent Hill and she comes across the big, I don't know, what like crater kind of thing, the where the streets just stop and there's a cliff. There's a you know, couple of them in the game for kind of pathing reasons. But she runs across one of them searching through the town, and it has that same vibe where like, there could be, you could do this a different way. Like it could just be a cliff, right? And there would be no technical difference or visual difference between someone that I think understands why that works and someone that doesn't. But just the way that it's designed and the way that it's shot feels so perfectly intertwined with how the game feels. That even if it doesn't look the same, it feels the same, you know? She runs into Dahlia here. I don't really like how Dahlia just shows up here compared to like the church in the game, but there's a lot of other stuff happening in the church later on. So I get that. But Dahlia just kind of approaches her out of nowhere and she's like rambling, typical old lady, weird horror movie lady stuff. And Rose is like, hey, can you please help me find my daughter? Have you seen her? And Dahlia's like, well, that's my daughter. And she starts freaking out. that causes.
I think this scene here is actually relatively spiritually accurate to
Mm,
your first encounter with Dahlia
yeah.
in the game, because if you replay Silent Hill 1, everything Dahlia is saying makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
But without the proper context, she sounds like a jabbering
Yeah.
crazy woman
Hmm.
in the game. And similarly in the movie, you know, she is proven to be absolutely everything that she says is correct,
Is
but it's broken up
technically
and
correct. Yeah.
it's crazy sounding.
Yeah.
And you're like, I mean, even her saying, no, that's my daughter, that's some crackhead shit.
Yeah.
We 100%, obviously this woman has just lost her
Yeah.
mind. Once again, it's just a really cool nod to the game, spiritually speaking, not so much in accuracy.
Hmm. Definitely. So Rose kind of is like, okay, this bitch crazy. I'm gonna get out of here. She goes back to her car to try to find Sharon, and she finds another one of those messed up pictures that she was drawing. This time it's of Midwich Elementary. So she decides she's gonna head to the school, try to find Sharon. But before she can do that, Sybil shows back up. She crashed her bike, much like Rose crashed her car. And Sybil just starts arresting her on the spot, which, again, Sybil, love her. She doesn't make a bad decision, I think, throughout the entire movie. Like, pulling her over kind of makes sense from Sybil's point of view earlier on, and or just straight up arresting her now because she's obviously it looked like she was kidnapping that girl, and now her car is crashed and she's on the side of the road and the daughter is gone. This looks even more like a kidnapping. Arresting her on the spot actually makes sense. In an improvement from the game almost. My big criticism of Sybil was in that game. It's just giving Harry a gun. It's like, oh wow, it's kind of foggy here. Here's a loaded pistol.
I think it makes a lot of sense for her character, because we as viewers of the movie are privy to things. We know we're in some different place and there are threats all around us. Whereas Sybil is a police officer and all she knows is, I've crashed my bike. I was chasing a perp. I've come across that perp.
Yeah.
I see a lot of critique of the movie where they're like, really, you're going to arrest her? You're in the middle of, like, you know, the end of the world kind of a scenario. She doesn't know that. Yeah.
And I think even they explain, I think maybe Sybil explains it to Rose at this point. But I know at least Officer Gucci explains it to Chris later on that like Sybil ran into this, I think it was like some guy and a kid. And that's the guy that threw this kid down like a gas vent and killed this kid. And Sybil couldn't save him in time. So like, this is, you know, she feels some sort of, like retribution, I guess, by trying to stop this from happening again. You know, maybe it'll feel like, you know, last time I fucked up, but this time I kind of have to.
I think the kid lived.
Oh, did he?
I think Sybil rescued the kid.
Okay.
A guy threw a kid down a gas vent. Sybil rescued him and brought him all the way back to Brahms, I want to say. But Sybil has had a history of people taking kids to Silent Hill.
She has experience with this at the very least, and she knows how like kind of traumatizing that is. I forget if that kid dies or not, because I could have sworn he's like, the kid died and, you know, she doesn't want to repeat that or something. I can't remember exactly.
I remember a line from Gucci, like something like she drugged that kid, or maybe it was the guy who did it all the way to Brahms.
Yeah, I think, whatever. Either way, she is probably very traumatized from that, and it's going to make her never want to repeat that again. Yeah. And so she arrests Rose, but then she's like, I'm just gonna walk you back to Silent Hill, which I think maybe I just literally said Sybil doesn't make any stupid decision in this movie. That kind of is a stupid decision. Like this lady's, you have her in handcuffs. You should probably go into town, try to find the daughter before she dies. But at the very least, she arrests Rose on sight. And as they're heading back, they run into another like road cliffside. And then they're attacked by little creatures. And this is another example of Silent Hill 2 monsters being just put in this movie for whatever reason. Because you have the kind of mannequin, like 4-armed creature shows up here again. Which we'll talk about when Pyramid Head shows up more about like why they had to put the Silent Hill 2 monsters in this. It makes no sense, but I was like, come on, you can't think of anything new.
Oh wait, the
this?
one that shows up in this scene is the one that's like wrapped in skin with its arms kind of in its body, and it has the single.
Oh yeah.
It's acid.
You're right. Yeah. So either way, Silent Hill 2 monster.
But it is a Silent Hill 2 monster. Yes.
And actually, now that I'm thinking of it, I don't think there's a single. I guess the little baby hand creatures are Silent Hill 1
that one's
monsters,
Silent Hill 1.
but I think that's it. Because there's nurses, Pyramid Head, mannequin.
I mean, there are nurses in Silent Hill 1, but these are the bubblehead nurses.
These are the
so they are the
sexy
Silent Hill
ones.
2 variant. Yeah, of course. Because why couldn't you?
Yeah, so they're attacked. Sybil gets like covered in venom, which Sybil Bennett, so cool. I loved her in the first game. She's even cooler in this one. This is like she just rips off her jacket that's like burning from the acid. It is like the coolest scene of someone just taking a jacket off. It's just the way she does it. I don't know how to explain it. She just rips that thing off and she's like angry doing it. Yeah. I just love Sybil. And she like empties a mag into this monster, and just lets Rose like very obviously like slowly start walking away and then sprint away and doesn't say a thing. And Rose gets away while she's fighting this monster. And she heads to the school, obviously where Sharon is apparently. So she's in the school now. She's searching around for Sharon. She goes to her desk. There's a flashback with like kids bullying her. Obviously this back when she was in Silent Hill, she didn't have that great of a time. And Rose finds herself in the bathroom, and there is this barbed wired up corpse in one of the stalls, with a, I even watched this again this morning. She pulls like a little placard or something out of his mouth with like a portion of the hotel's name on it. What is that she
I
actually?
thought it was a key that was in his mouth.
But it's like, that's what I thought too. But it's like a rock. Like it's not like thin. Like like a key hanger would be. It's like a piece of something. And when
maybe
they go,
it wasn't a key. It wasn't.
I don't really. I didn't look like any. Like it just looked like a rock, basically, with letters on it. And then when they go to the hotel later on, they're like, "Oh, look, this is the same as here, but it's like a rock. So maybe it's like a somehow crumpled up like key tag or something. I don't really know. But it that was weird to me that because originally watching, I'm like, why is she just pulling a rock out of this man's mouth? But as she does this, there's these bunch of we later find that they're cult members, but I really like this originally because they look like miners, like coal miners. And just after we had seen the kind of venom spitting monster from Silent Hill 2, we finally actually got kind of a new monster, essentially. And I think this is my favorite design of the whole movie, because it is from the movie itself. It's something that they've designed, and fits in with the coal fires under the town and everything. And they have this like bird in a cage, which we later find out is how they can tell when the Otherworld is coming. But it has that like perfect kind of thematic element to it where like these are the miners that could have been stuck down there in the coal mine. We don't really know. And they're in the coal fire, and they're like kind of come back to life. And also,
visually speaking, they do sort of resemble a lot of the bodies that are strung up in the Silent Hill 1 game. They almost have this like old diving suit type of look to them. So
it reminds me a lot of Thomas Zane from Alan Wake, like that kind of like Submariner, like 1900s kind of suit, with like the almost like a hazmat helmet kind of thing. I do love it visually. And it makes a lot of sense. This is supposed to be a West Virginian town in the movie, which is a very, very big coal mining state. And so you kind of have the coal, they kind of get rid of the like vacation spot element of Silent Hill almost. But I think they replace it with something that makes sense. thematically, and
Everybody's there to work in the
yeah,
mines, and that's how it made its
which
money.
is a lot of sort of like real world tragedies where like there either there's mining or like um, there's I forget what the town name is, but like they were mining for
Centralia,
gas.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, like that is a real town
Mm.
example. There's one in like the Midwest that like they were, I think, mining for gas or oil, and like they discovered there's just like acid underneath the town, and they like erupted it,
Cool.
and the whole town had to be evacuated because of it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing, where like this is kind of feasible that this would happen. You know, obviously the weird monsters walking around are a little far, but like abandoned town where nothing's going on. I don't have a plot point or anything, but this is kind of where we see more Chris stuff happen, where they're at the school, him and Officer Gucci. They're like, oh no, everyone had to run from the town because of these coal fires. And then they just kind of walk into the town with like N95 masks and they're fine.
Yeah.
Which,
well, to be fair, Chris does kind of freak out, which the movie frames as him. This is the one thing that I enjoyed about a Chris scene is him feeling that Rose was in the same place as him.
I do like that.
But those two not being able to see, like, actually they're not physically in the same place. Yeah. But in the movie's logic, it makes sense for Officer Gucci just to think, you've inhaled too much of this gas. We got to get you out of here. That kind of, I did enjoy that part.
And the miners that show up and try to get Rose originally, and she, locks the bathroom door. Their bird like starts freaking out. The sirens start playing. She transitions to the Otherworld, and then Chris makes it to the school. So like, there's a level of like, maybe if they were quicker and she didn't get transitioned to the other world, maybe they could have found each other. That could have happened. I think by the end we find out that wouldn't have happened, but it kind of gives you the like, they were so close, they could have made it, but they didn't. And I think out of all the Chris scenes later on, when he's like, he goes to like the archives to find stuff, and then he goes to the original orphanage where they adopted Sharon. That's the stuff that really is like, man, just I'm tired of this. But like you said, when they're like in the same hallway when she's running from this like the guy in the bathroom stall that was like barbed wired up comes alive, and he's like this like his arms and legs are like tied behind his back, but he's still like crawling. So good. The actor,
it's very creepy. The noise that he makes, he's very twitchy.
Yeah.
It's super effective.
And so she's running from him into this hallway, and it's the same hallway that Chris and Rose are in, which again, I like thematically. But then a bunch of bugs show up in Rose's world, and they start chasing her.
Okay, and there's one enemy that is from Silent Hill 1, the bugs.
I don't even remember bugs in Silent Hill 1.
Yeah, they have little well, they're roaches, I guess.
Yeah, because there's like the things on the ground, but like this is like because there's only like ever 2 or 3, I think. Like they're like big, they're kind of like Fallout rat roaches, if I remember.
Yeah, you're right.
Actually, is that Silent Hill 1? I can't remember.
Yeah, in the sewers in Silent Hill 1, you do have these little like roaches.
I think in the hospital too, maybe. Now I'm thinking about it. But yeah, okay. Either way, I think their implementation in the movie is like a very cliche horror movie kind of thing at this point, at least. Again, this movie was made in 2006. Maybe it's the first movie that ever did that kind of thing. But like, I don't know. Even like Metal Gear Solid 2 does this with the water, like roaches or whatever they are. Like, 3,000 bugs in a room is played out enough that it's not scary anymore. And it's just kind of.
Although I will say the imagery of Pyramid Head just kind of trudging through them was kind of cool. As if like they were originating from him, and he was just having to, like, they were the driven snow, and he was having to move through them.
Because originally there's the bathroom janitor creature, and then she gets out of the room, then the bugs come. And then because the janitor actor and Pyramid Head actor are the same, It's
Oh,
almost
I
as
didn't
if,
know that.
yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
almost as if the janitor like gets like consumed by the bugs or whatever, because
Mm,
he's there, she runs away, there are bugs like flowing into the room, and then he emerges as Pyramid Head, like a
mm.
couple shots later. And so originally watching the movie, as soon as Pyramid Head showed up, I'm like, come on, like
Yeah.
again, really? You just had like your new creature design with the miners, and they were cool, and then you got to pull a
Mm,
Pyramid Head. But watching it the second time and realizing that not only is that the same actor, but I don't know if this is intentional or not, but essentially that janitor in that stall essentially transforms into Pyramid Head throughout the scene. Kind of makes me appreciate it a little bit more because of what Pyramid Head is to James in the second game. It kind of fits that Pyramid Head would be a creature in Alessa's world with the janitor. They kind of
mm.
they while not serving the same purpose, they have the same like thematic elements of like, especially in this movie, Pyramid Head is like roided out, like
Yeah.
this like sex beast guy,
Mm,
which works with the janitor. Obviously, like later on, we discover like raped Alessa in the
mm.
bathroom after school or whatever, and that janitor creature becomes Pyramid Head. I think does actually fit the movie. I
I don't
just
think I've ever put it together like that, but I like the idea.
yeah, I think it makes sense at least. I
Mm.
still don't like that Pyramid Head is here. I will say though, I do like this version of Pyramid Head.
He's cool looking as fuck. It's hard to deny, man. That's the worst part about it,
Yeah.
is half of you wants to go, listen, he can only exist inside of James's psyche and
Mhm.
he's already dead. But at the same
Yeah.
time, he's got a cool pyramid on his head and
Mhm.
dope shoulders. It's like,
Yeah.
what's
I
there
don't
to
know.
hate,
I don't know. I can't complain, Um, and so Pyramid Head chases her. She's like cornered. Sybil shows up to the rescue, but also not really to the rescue because then they just both get trapped. And Sybil has like this girl carries like 7 bullets with her, I guess, on her body. 1 magazine loaded in her gun, basically. And she's like, okay, that's good enough. And they're stuck in this like closet in a very video gamey, like shoves the big blade in and then like shaves off half the room. Like you'd have to
Mm,
like dive underneath it or something or dodge. Which I saw some people like being like that, like it feels gamified almost. I kind of liked it because it did feel
yeah.
gamified, and this is a
Mm,
video game movie. Either way, there's bugs like crawling into the room. It is one of the good aspects of the bugs is that they are overwhelming. I think Pyramid Head by himself wouldn't be that scary, but the fact that both are
yeah.
there, it reminds me a
Mm,
lot of the bugs from Silent Hill 2, where James is locked in that like keypad room
mm.
near the end of the game. Like they're covering all the walls and everything. Very good scene, I think, in terms
Yeah.
of like scare value.
And I
Um,
liked how they showed how heavy the great knife is that
oh
Pyramid
yeah.
Head is dragging
Hmm.
around. It's very visually taxing for him to use, and that does make it sort of make sense to me that with enough force, you could shove that through a steel door, like a can opener, kind of maneuver it to where it would do something like that.
And he even, I think at one point, like when he's trying to take the bar off the door that they locked the door with, he just like slams the knife into a wall, and it just like sticks there into the
Yeah.
wall. And then after Sybil shoots his hand a couple times, he like lifts his hand out of the door, and he just grabs that thing and like tears it out of the wall essentially. And it just feels like it's like a 1,000 pounds. It's
Mhm.
so good. The actor who did like the janitor and Pyramid Head, or in this movie, sorry, Red Pyramid is his
Yeah.
name. I think just does a fantastic job. And
Mhm.
apparently he also coached the rest of the monsters in the movie as well on how to move and do the kind of monster feeling.
That makes sense because as
Perfect.
the janitor, he was so good, and the
Hmm.
noises he was making were so
Yeah, he
guttural
like
and
he does
like,
like a tongue thing too, where he like
mm,
the whole time and like makes these noises.
yeah,
So good, standout of the movie. I
mm,
think he is.
yeah,
But Sybil shoots his arm. He kind of lifts it out, and that gives them enough time for the Otherworld transition to happen back to the real world. And so they're safe now. Like, okay, we got to go find Sharon. We got this block with the hotel written on it. Let's head to the hotel. This is where they meet Anna, which is like their first encounter with the cult. She's kind of boring. I'm going to be honest. I don't think she really adds much except sort of exposition. But she has the same issue as Dahlia. As when you're watching this for the first time, they're too like there's too much like cultish rambling that you don't really understand
mm,
what they're trying to get across. And
yeah,
even if you watch it a second time and then you kind of understand it, I don't think there's enough going there to make it interesting, really,
mm,
because it
yeah.
just sounds like rambling.
And you know what? She gives off this kind of like Amish 20-year
Hmm.
old that's raised outside, so still very childish because of the way that the cult has raised her, and she's sort of is unaware of how like adults sort of
Yeah.
act in a
Hmm.
sense. So when she starts talking, you're just like, yeah, I'm not gonna believe a word this
Yeah.
like mental child is
Hmm.
saying to me.
And so I think it's again pointing back to the things that are like regular horror movie creepy. You know, like you always have an old lady that like mutters under her breath, and you
Yeah.
always got like a cult member who like just talks about insane things, and it
Mm,
feels very like Western horror movie implemented, but not very Silent Hill implemented.
mm,
Um, Either way, they're looking through the hotel. They find this a hidden hotel room behind a painting that I really like. That feels like a Silent Hill puzzle where you'd have to like go
very
find a knife
Silent Hill.
somewhere and
Yeah.
then go over and tear down the painting. But then they're in this hotel room and they do the like two buildings next to each other without doors, jump across the like gap.
Once
Um,
again, Silent Hill too.
Silent Hill 2 thing again. And that didn't really work in Silent Hill 2 for me. And it worked even
Mm,
less in this because it's after Pyramid Head, after the Venom thing. Like just you can call back to Silent Hill 2. That's cool. That's fine.
mm,
But just ripping so many things out of Silent Hill 2 doesn't it just comes across as, hey guys, look, we put it in the movie. You know,
yeah.
like you can do that with Silent Hill 1 because that's the movie that's the game that you're remaking. So
Mm,
you can take things one to one and it's a cool callback, right?
yeah.
When you're taking stuff from Silent Hill 2, it just feels like the kind of, hey, please clap for me kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also, I wrote like, now that they've done all this stuff in the Silent Hill 1 movie, what are they going to do in the Silent Hill 2 movie? You know? Because they
Dude,
could just do it again.
you have
Sure.
no idea how bad it gets. You have no idea.
So like, it's just, it makes me wonder, you know, like I can see it that maybe at the time Christoph was like, hey, you know, it sounds like I might only get this one movie. I'm going to put all the
Mm,
cool things I like from basically all three games into this one
yeah.
movie. And
Yeah.
just, if they never let me do another one, I got what I wanted in there.
Mm,
And Pyramid Head, after I've thought about it, I kind of like. The monsters are whatever. But it continually happens that like there are these callbacks that are callbacks just for the sake of it.
mm,
And it becomes increasingly grating on a first watch and doubly so on a second watch.
yeah.
They end up in this warehouse after they jump across, and she finds Alessa like through this hole in the building for some reason, and so she like jumps across onto these different like structural
Beams.
rods. Yeah,
Yeah.
like which I'm like, why couldn't this just been like a floor? You know, what is this
Yeah.
adding to the movie? Again, this is going to bring to beat this with a dead horse by the end of this episode, but just like it looks cool visually.
Mm.
Why does it have to be in the movie? You know?
I think Christoph Gans and this is not going to surprise you having watched the movie, but if you watch a lot of the making of media,
Hmm.
he had a very base misunderstanding of Silent Hill's lore, and he saw the other world as just hell. So a lot
Mm.
of his visual theming was pits leading down into the abyss,
Yeah.
like with the first scene and this scene of like an overhead shot of her walking on this beam. He was very much trying to, if the other world was hell, he would be doing a really good job of visually theming his shots here.
And I think
Um,
even if it was the other world, like even if he did make the other world more like hell, I
mm,
don't think that looks bad. You know, like
yeah.
I it's not 100% what I think it
Mm,
actually means,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it still works. But this is
Yeah.
like in the normal world part of
Mm,
it. And so it's just like if this was something she had to do to like escape Pyramid Head or something, I would understand. But in a scene that takes like 5 minutes for her to cross, and also she runs across the building, goes upstairs, and she spends minutes getting from one end of the room to the other, and
mm.
then she talks to Sharon, um, and then after that, finally Sybil catches up to her. Like Sybil took like 10 minutes to get up the stairs, or something. It has that like movie logic where like this could have just been like a creepy room, you know.
Yeah.
It's there for no reason, you know.
Mm.
But she goes across. She talks to who she thinks is Sharon, but it turns out this is Alessa. This is kind of really the first time we see Alessa herself, or I guess the not actually
Yeah.
Alessa, but her Alessa's vision of Alessa, I guess.
Mm.
And she's like, hey, can you look just like my daughter? Can you help me find her? And Alessa's like, I'm burning, and then explodes. Which sure, whatever. Sybil and Anna come back. They get her across. And then the I do like the visuals of the animals realizing that the overworld switch is happening first. A
Yeah,
bunch of
yeah,
like
yeah.
crows or whatever they are like fly out
Mhm.
from under the building, really scared. And that's how Anna knows like, hey, we got to get to the church to get to safety.
Mm.
And so the team, they head for the church. When they're on the steps, this like stampede of people comes running back from them. I really like this. This is obviously not in the original game, but this sense, I really don't like the cult for a lot of things, but the sense that there are still people living in Silent Hill trying to get through this like essentially apocalypse,
Mhm.
I think kind of works, right? Like the like I don't know, 5 or 6 people we ever see across all the Silent Hill games, it is kind of weird because like there's like I don't know, in the first game there's the I forget her name. I want to say Rose, but I don't think that's it. The nurse in the hospital, like the living nurse.
Oh,
Um,
oh, don't. Damn it.
Let me see if I get another Google search.
Oh, this is gonna kill me. I'm gonna get so mad when you say it.
No, that's the oh, okay. Do you want to guess?
The one who dies with all the
It's the
blood.
blood, yeah.
Tell me.
I'll give you a last name.
Okay, last name.
Garland.
Lisa Garland.
Lisa Garland. There you go. Yeah, Lisa.
Mm.
She's just like kind of in the hospital, just stuck there by herself,
Mhm.
which kind of works when Harry shows up and she's kind of like stuck in the other world kind of thing. But I think that the idea of there are people still trying to get by essentially in Silent Hill, instead of the like these people are trapped in like kind of their own personal hells across Silent Hill,
Mhm.
ends up being not only more, it's not realistic, but like it is kind of more realistic.
Maybe more grounded.
Yeah, it is the sense that like Alessa brought upon an apocalypse to this town, and these people are trying to live through the apocalypse.
Yeah.
We also find that the sirens are the church's like warning system to try to get people to come back in.
This is what I've been waiting to get to because it is one of my favorite aspects of the movie. Like you said, it is very grounded because in the games we're playing through and it's a video game. It's all video game logic. But when you make a movie, it's like, yeah, how did they get food? Or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um, so Dahlia is there in Silent Hill, and we've come across no building where you could imagine she would get something to eat.
Mhm.
Um, I really like the idea of this cult existing in Silent Hill and then giving further context to the things that we experience in the game, even though this is not the game's
Mhm.
storyline. But if it was, these are really cool
It
explanations.
would work. Yeah.
The church sounding this old air raid siren
Mhm.
to warn its followers to come back in. It's not necessarily the transition to the other world that's causing this. It's them telling people the transition is taking place. And then while they're in their church, they like get together, they pray, and then
Mhm.
it takes away the other world. It sort of explains the coming and going
Yeah.
of the other world. You have this constant fight between Alessa, who's exerting her force onto the town, and these religious people who is pushing it back, and it's this back and forth. I think that is the coolest idea. It is not Silent Hill in any
Yeah.
way, shape, or form. But as a movie that I'm watching, it's infinitely interesting.
That goes back to like my point before, where like there are a lot of changes from the game to the movie, but I think the changes of stuff in the game, if you put them in the movie, I would immediately be like that makes no sense. That's stupid.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
in a game, I can kind of believe it because you can make it feel much more um, almost surrealist, I guess, much
Yeah.
easier. I think in a game because there's a sort of what the hell am I trying to say?
Suspension of disbelief.
Suspension of disbelief. Thank you,
Yeah.
not dispension of susbelief. Um,
I'm the dyslexic one too. That's messed up.
but like you're playing as Harry, right? So
Mm,
you being the character kind of drowns you to the story in a way that you don't get in a movie.
yes.
And so there are a lot of kind of like alarm bells that would be ringing in my head with logic that the game can pull off very easily.
Mm,
And maybe if you had a director to the level of I don't know, like uh, we always bring up David Lynch, but like he's
mm,
the easiest, most widely popular example. Where like, yeah, you can make that kind of thing work, but when that's not like the basis of the movie, you know, like
mhm.
Silent Hill 1 isn't that kind of game. Like it
Yeah.
certainly follows sort of dream logic quite a bit, but that's not the point.
Mhm.
And so if you tried to do that in the movie, that has to kind of become the point to make it work.
Yeah.
So you have to give reasonings that make this world that isn't a dream world make sense.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I mean, the entire movie's theme could be summed up as, yeah, Silent Hill was a really cool game.
mhm.
What if it was real?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same stuff that as you're playing a video game and you're playing Resident Evil 2 and you're like, I wonder what's 2 inches to the right of this pre-rendered
Yeah,
screen. In a movie, we would have to show that
yeah.
space. Silent Hill is a really good example of providing what I would say is really cool explanations for the video game events. It's pretty cool.
I want to get into that in a second
Okay.
because I completely disagree. But
All right.
let's get to the inside the church real quick.
Mm,
They're standing on the steps. Dahlia comes up, is like, no, don't trust them. You know, they're actually the evil ones, essentially. This is where their pyramid head shows back up. For some reason, like Anna in just the stupidest decision ever, like sits on the stairs and then never leaves where she's sitting like the whole time.
she's throwing rocks at
Yeah.
Dahlia.
And then when she could have just got up and got inside the church, completely fine.
Mm,
But I thank her so much for it because then we get Pyramid Head just grabbing her and just literally like actually weirdly much the same how like Sybil takes her jacket off at the beginning with the acid, just like nonchalantly just rips off her skin
it's
completely.
such a good scene.
So good. And that's another good example of like that's where you need to use the CGI. Like you couldn't really have done that
Mm,
convincingly with like practicals or anything. That sort of I don't know. It's you could have only done that with CGI. So by all means, please use CGI to do
you know,
that.
the very first shot of him twisting the skin
Mm,
is actually
hmm
practical effects, which is cool.
Yeah,
But you know, the pulling and
yeah.
everything like that. The one thing, the only issue I have with that scene, and it is incredible, is the amount of blood that splatters on Rose afterwards. There should be a lot more.
Yeah.
That's the only thing because the way it splatters, you could see the particles in the air, and then the ones that show up on her face are very like sparse.
Yeah.
That was my only issue with it. But holy hell, in the pantheon of cool things in horror movies, that's up there.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Definitely. And so Pyramid Head just rips off this lady's skin. They're kind of like, oh, well, and then they go into the church. So this is where we can kind of talk about this reasoning, the story behind this movie and how it differentiates from the game. They're in the church. Rose is like, hey, I'm trying to find I don't know if she actually says, hey, I'm trying to find my kid. I think she does say like, hey, please help me find my daughter. They don't know it's Alessa at this point.
Yeah.
And Christabel's like, okay, sure, you're going to die. Like, no one ever comes back, but if that's what you want to do, we'll take you there. And so they take her to the hospital. Christabella, who's the leader of the cult, finds Rose's locket, finds out that her daughter is Alessa, starts freaking out. Sybil, again, just the coolest fucking cop in existence, just takes out her baton and starts smacking these cult members.
The scene where like there's a pipe that's holding these elevator doors open, and the scene of her reaching and pulling it out is just so well framed. She looks so cool doing it, and how she holds them is at bay as she has her gun, which we've already established.
Used all of her bullets on Pyramid.
And then she knew, okay, I'm not going to be able to keep them like this for long. If they don't see that I'm not going to fire it, they're obviously going to attack me. So she just goes and just shows him in a sense of like, what the hell else was I going to do? Yeah. So she fights back in the most badass way that she
basically
can.
Like, okay, you think I have bullets. I don't. What are you going to do about it? Come here.
It's very, very cool. I like that moment a lot.
Anyways, Rose goes downstairs through the elevator. And we'll talk about the nurses after this. She runs into the nurses. And then she finally finds Alessa at the bottom floor. This is where we get like the big flashback sequence. So essentially, I'm going to try to summarize this as much as I can. I don't have much notes on this because it would have been way too long to write out. Alessa and Dahlia, they're in Silent Hill. I forget exactly why they think she's like the spawn of the devil, but they think she's the spawn of the devil. So
essentially, Dahlia had a baby out of wedlock.
Okay.
And she's a member of this religious organization that is so devout that the idea of having a baby out of wedlock, which is not too far off from what, fundamentalist Christians would believe.
Yeah.
They think that's like the worst thing that you can do, but they take it a step further and they're like, this will be the spawn of the devil because it wasn't this holy union between a man and a woman, Yeah. So this girl is born and she is a constant burden to everybody around her in the sense that they're always burdening themselves with fucking with her. Like she's bullied to hell and back. People mistreat her. She's sexually assaulted by a janitor. No one ever does anything about that. The kids at school hate her. And she's overall, I think we can all agree, just bringing the vibe down. So Christabella gets a meeting
exactly
together.
how I would describe it.
Yeah. So she gets a meeting together and she's like, okay, bringing the vibe down. What do we do about this? And everybody agrees. We gotta burn her at the stake in the same way because she's, there's a lot of ties to the Salem witch trials. And this is the devil that has been brought into the earth. And it's our mission as religious people to purge it from the earth with fire, essentially.
And I do like to say at least one good thing about this plot so far. The way there's a lot of movies that try to handle the sort of not religious guilt, but like you can tell that like maybe the writer was religious at one point and then something happened, and this is their way of trying to explain like their issues with the church and everything. It's done in a way in this movie where like it doesn't demonize like normal religious people that I feel like a lot of movies end up accidentally doing through trying to demonize the actually really shitty parts of organized religion. Right. It usually goes too far, I think. Cause like there are a lot of shitty religious people, but there are also some religious people that just go about their day like normal human beings.
Never bothering anybody.
Yeah. And so it sets up early on, like these people are kind of fucked up, you know. It has the school has that vibe of like, it already kind of felt like a cult before anything went down. And so it kind of points to how things like this kind of really strict, like kind of almost moral to the point of unmoral religion. How it can negatively affect people. But it doesn't demonize the whole thing, which...
Well, it helps that they show it as a secretive thing too.
Yeah.
So this is obviously something that the majority of people don't support
and don't even know about.
Or else it would be out in the open.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
that's really good to, exactly like you said. It's not necessarily that Christianity ultimately leads to this. It's that crazy people ultimately lead to this.
As someone who, as a kid, was like brought up religious, and I am no longer religious at all. Many of the reasons I stopped being religious were because of the just the horrible things organized religion have done in the history of the world, right? Like up to, there's obviously really, really terrible things, war, genocide, even down to like the papacy and like, you know, the early 1200s to 1500s, how they would just like, oh, you've sinned, don't worry, just pay us a couple $100, you know, and we'll get rid of it for you. Just like things that, if there were a more educated populace, would make no sense whatsoever. But just, you know, the continual sort of taking advantage of people who actually believe in that kind of thing, as because they're trying to be good people and it makes them better people. But then horrible people coming in and taking advantage of that. A lot of movies paint, or a lot of movies with anti-religious themes sort of paint everyone under that picture instead of the more tragic reality of things that I think this movie paints well. And so they're like, okay, you know, we got this kid, she's the spawn of the devil. What are we going to do? We're going to burn her at the stake. And like you said earlier about the town kind of looking New England-ish, fits in with the Salem witch trial aspect of it. The only part I don't like is like, then why make the town West Virginian? You know, it has these witch trial thematic elements. It has the coal miner elements, which is very West Virginia. And then, but Silent Hill's also supposed to be a vacation town, which is more of a New England thing. Like no one goes to West Virginia for vacation. Come on. And the witch trial aspect that kind of fight against each other in the town's atmosphere. Like
as a French guy, I would imagine that would not be a nuance that he would even be aware of. Probably.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you know, West Virginia, it's near New England, I guess, so we'll do that. And I guess to be fair, West Virginia, very religious state overall because it's very rural. And so they kind of meet in the middle a little bit, but thematically, I don't think it works as perfectly as it could. But I am, you know, being very particular there.
Sure.
And so, okay, they're going to burn this girl. They take her to the hotel room in the city, and they set her ablaze. They try to kill her by setting, why don't they just, first of all, they could just like shoot her or something. Like, you don't got to do this. Just hang her. I don't know. Do something.
It's a very elaborate way of burning her too. It's not even burning her at a stake. They put her in one of those things on the grill where you trap meat between two grates. It's very, I mean, and you know, and it's not big enough for an adult either because it's just the size of her child body.
I want to know like where'd they get that? You know, they got a blacksmith like working. Hey, listen, we need a grill for this kid.
We need a custom weld job.
Work one up. Yeah. Like, I don't know how they got that. They start burning her alive. Obviously it goes wrong. This girl just explodes basically. And she's burning, all the chaos ensues. Most of the cult runs out of the room or I guess, you know, maybe dies in the fire. And good old Officer Gucci comes to the rescue, brings her down from the grate. But while they're not too late to save her, They are too late to actually save her. She is a alive but a burnt corpse. So they send her to the hospital, and she is just trapped in her essentially living corpse for the rest of her time on this earth. And her hate and her despise for this church in the town is what ends up building this apocalypse that takes over the town. And so, Rose hears all this. She's like, okay, well, I'm here to save my daughter. Basically, what do you need me to do?
Well, hold on. Before we go forward, there are two events simultaneously taking place. There is the coal fire, which is started by this mishap where they're trying to burn the girl. I never understood why that fire traveled down to these like gas mains under the whatever. I didn't understand that too much, but again, there's a lot of aspects of this movie that weren't well thought out.
My read of that was like all of this happens, and her like the easiest way to like start things going wrong is to start that coal fire. Was my kind of read of that, where it's just like she's like, well, how can I fuck up this town? Like that's how it starts. But yeah, so she starts fucking up the town. And it was like, now in present day, it was like, okay, it kind of makes sense, I guess. You're angry. What can I do to save my daughter, to save Sharon? And this is where it really just starts falling apart for me. Alessa's like, all I just want revenge. I want to kill these people. So essentially go to the church, try to convince the cult that she's wrong, get me a way in, basically. Back at the church, Sybil Bennett, as much as she tried to fight the cult, she ends up losing to like 4 like miners in huge gear, obviously. So
carrying like pipes and stuff.
Yeah.
She's beat to hell.
She's tied up to a ladder. At the same time, they essentially like bust into this apartment where Dahlia was keeping Sharon safe. They take them hostage, bring them to the church. And now we're set up for essentially the climax of the scene. We got Sybil Bennett tied up to a ladder. They got Dahlia on the floor, and Sharon also there, about to be sent up to the ladder and tied up. Okay. Do you want to talk about the issues I have with? I guess we could save that for the end, because the movie actually kind of goes pretty quickly after this.
It does, yeah.
So we might as well just get to the end of this, and then I'll talk about my issues with the plot. Okay. Yeah. So they start to burn Sybil, I guess, to kind of make up the time difference between Rose being in the hospital, getting to the church. I honestly think it was just completely unnecessary.
Is it because you like Sybil so much?
Well, I love Sybil, and she lives in the first game, and it works perfectly in the first game. So I don't know, because
here's my thing, because I 100% agree with you. She's an awesome character. She's a badass, and she's a badass in a way that feels very realistic, and not like she took on 4 guys and won the fight. You know what I mean? Like, she was more of a badass in the sense that she knew she was self-sacrificing, and she went into it with a smile. Even when they're lowering the ladder onto the fire, she's thinking of Sharon, telling her to look away.
Yeah.
So like, they did a good job of writing Sybil as a character. And here's where I'm supporting the burning her alive thing. It is the most terribly gruesome scene I've seen in a horror movie before, because that looks like what people look like when they burn alive. It is so scarily like framed, and it's so, they don't shoot away from the gore. It's just the camera's on it. Sybil's neck starts to elongate as her skin starts to like harden and leather. Like, it is crazy how scary. And like, oh man, it's a really wild scene. And Christoph Gans is very well known for not shooting away from gore. He zooms in on it. And I think that's probably, again, I've seen a lot of movies where like gruesome acts were portrayed on film. This is one of the more disturbing to me because it seems almost, if you showed it to someone who was like 15 years old, they'd be like, that they just burnt that woman alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess this kind of, my reasoning for why I dislike it really ties into my dislike of the plot as a whole, or the cult as a whole. So I'll get into it later, but
Okay.
I'm just not a fan of it. I
enough.
think there is no real reason for them to burn Sybil except to just show that the cult is really bad. You know, like, oh, look how horrible they are that they're burning her. When again, like same with Rose in the or Sharon, yes, the kid, or I guess Alessa technically, because this would be beforehand. Like, you know, why don't they just shoot her, you know, or like hang her or something? Why, there was no reason to like burn her alive, other than to just make them bad people, you know. Either way, Sybil gets burned alive. Finally, Rose makes it to the church. She tries to convince the group that, hey, this lady, Christabella, is bad. She's taking advantage of you. You know, she's the one who actually started this whole thing because they burned Alessa alive.
I really like the line where she said the apocalypse never happened, because the entire time this religious order thought
the whole
end
world
times had come. Yeah, it was what is it called? Rapture.
Yeah.
Right. And they had thought that they were stuck in the real world and they were fighting off the forces of hell, when in reality they're in this small pocket of shit going on, and the rest of the world just went on about its business. That was kind of cool, her bringing the news. It's like, by the way, guys, this is not what you think it is.
And originally seeing this, she started like her big like her big speech, right? Her persuasion speech. And I was like, are they really going to do this? Because I'm like, it is very cliche to be like, hey, this person's actually evil. You know, you got to fight against them, but it doesn't work. You know, Christabel has enough of a grip on the cult where it can just be like, this person is speaking heresy. She's insane. She's wrong. I will guide you to salvation, essentially. And I like that. They don't, because again, a worser movie would have just kind of been like, okay, well, they turn against her. And, you know, now Christabella's backed into a corner, so she does what she does. But instead, she does what she does just because, you know, this bitch has made her angry, basically. And so she stabs Rose. Just the most amount of blood anyone has ever gaped from an orifice comes out of her body. And that kind of, I guess, essentially brings the unholiness into the church where it wasn't before. And that allows...
That was the problem, is Alessa needed Rose as a vessel to enter the holy ground, essentially. And the stabbing is what allowed her to exit the vessel.
And so she kind of erupts in the middle of this room, her like charred corpse tied to this barbed wire. Another very, very good visual in this movie. A lot of good visuals.
So cool.
And all hell breaks loose. Alessa, obviously very angry that these people like burned her alive, just goes to town with like these barbed wire tentacles, ripping people apart left and right.
It's so good.
She grabs Christabella, like hangs her in the air, and I thought she was gonna like rip her apart in half originally, but then she just like starts shooting barbed wire inside of her through like every orifice at the same time, and like wraps it around her inside.
Out of her mouth.
Yeah. Oh God.
It's amazing.
You know, as much as I hate Christabella, got a sick ass death scene, you know? Same with Anna, like kind of boring character, sick ass death scene.
It's the stuff that death metal song titles are made of. Barbed wire sodomy that goes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
I can't, we've already explained it. If you don't think it's cool, then there's no way I'm going to convince you. It's too cool. I
could see someone being like, that's just like, to a point, it's just like graphic violence for being graphic violence. But I don't know, man.
There's something to be said for like a person, because I would have never thought of that as a possibility to ever happen to anyone on this mortal coil. So there's something to be said for a person that when they sit down, they can go to a dark enough place where they think of barbed wire sodomy.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing.
And so this gives time for Rose to go up, save Sharon, who was tied to the other ladder in the room, get her off. I like that Alessa, Rose is about to be attacked by one of the cult members, and Alessa comes, one of her barbed wire tentacles comes and saves her. And Rose like looks up at Alessa and like she doesn't really smile, but she gives like a kind of like I got you kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I do have to also point out that as the blood is raining down from all this chaos, Alessa is dancing on the floor underneath like a little kid.
Yeah.
Oh, the imagery is so good.
She gets Sharon. They're able to escape. She keeps Dahlia alive, which I think makes a lot of sense. Dahlia, kind of a obviously, you know, the most tragic character is going to be Alessa, who was like literally burned alive. But
yeah,
for the most part, Dahlia didn't really do anything wrong. You know, like she let them take her daughter, but if she also tried to stop them, they would have just killed her and the child.
She did resist a bit during the event as well.
So she did.
She did.
And she also brought the police in to try to save her. She did what she could without, you know, being, you know, she wasn't like a horrible person and just let it happen, but she also...
She wasn't responsible for it.
Exactly. So I think that works. I like that. They call back like to a child, mother is God, which I think is honestly a kind of a good read of the movie as a whole and the thematic elements, with Christabella essentially being the mother to the children of the cult, because they can't really think for themselves overall. With Rose and Sharon, I think it works a lot. I think that's a good tie up. Anyway, they return home, but unfortunately they're kind of still stuck. Even though they're allowed to leave Silent Hill, they're still sort of stuck in the Silent Hill world, I guess. And we end with our little buddy Chris, who, stupidest storyline ever. I didn't really explain it fully, but like he goes from looking for her in the school to looking for the records to find if he can find anything about Sharon's original home life, to going to the orphanage, to Officer Gucci arresting him. And then he just kind of gives up. So another issue with him is that his storyline goes absolutely nowhere. But you know, we get at least some resolution with him sitting in the home. He kind of feels her presence again, like he did in the school, but you know, she's not there in the real world. And I think a good choice, a very fitting song. They kind of back up from the house, and the You're Not Here from Silent Hill 3, I think, plays. Perfect cut to credits. No notes on the last scene. I think they tried to be, they're like, oh wow, this is a really ambiguous ending sort of thing. Like it makes you think. I don't really think it makes you think that much, but I also think like an ending where they just went back to Chris wouldn't be very satisfying either. So I without making it some big twist at the end or something, which would have been bad if they're like, oh, this is all fake or whatever. Or like, you know,
they do leave it quasi up to interpretation to a degree, in a way that, like we've been talking about, is more spiritually true to Silent Hill than it is realistically true to it. It
essentially, it doesn't explain what happens, but it also doesn't really leave you with any questions. Which I like. There's a lot of movies that try the up to interpretation ending, but it ends up just being like, okay, then like what the hell happens? You know, there's nothing else I need to know, but it also doesn't tell me too much. Okay. That is the Silent Hill movie. That is the summary, my rambling, horrible summary. A lot of stuff happens in this movie. I have a couple of things I want to talk about with you here.
Let's do it.
Let's go ahead. Let's just jump into the big thing. The plot, the cult, the Alessa storyline. I want to know what you think, because watching your video, you were very positive on it. And I very much disagree. So I want to hear your thoughts first on the changes from the game to the movie, and if you think it works or not.
I feel like you can't necessarily judge. Okay, let's say this. You can't be positive about the Silent Hill movie while comparing it to the video game in a one-to-one type of sense.
Mhm.
It would be really hard for you to look at it as a recreation of the events of the video game and say that it was successful. That being said, as a very interesting outsider's interpretation of the events of Silent Hill 1, I think it's a very cool what if scenario, or it's cool to get into Christoph Ganz's head
Hmm.
as he interprets these events. And he's like, well, okay, we have a cult. My understanding of a cult would be steeped in Christian theology as opposed to demonology, which is what the original was more about. And that's the idea of like a Christian cult that was sort of secretly operating in this small town, like we were talking about, relatively grounded. I kind of like the idea of it. And I feel like because, you and I being Americans, we do sort of have more of an understanding of Christian theology and being around it. I grew up in Miami, but I moved back and forth between the Bible Belt and Miami. So I've been around very religiously zealous people. And maybe that kind of brought things home to me a bit in that sense. I love, you and I disagree about the cult and Silent Hill 1, the game. I think it's really cool. And I've always enjoyed the cult story, but I think it's even cooler imagining it as like a weird messianic, like religious zealot group that goes around burning people, like a continuation
Yeah.
of the Salem witch trials. I like that. I like that they pray the other world away. Not in the sense that I like the idea of prayer necessarily. I love what my idea of religion is. It's very interesting from a fictional perspective.
Yeah.
I like the idea of white mages. You know what I mean? Like they use, this holy power to cure or whatever. So we have the events of Silent Hill, the movie. We have this sort of localized apocalypse in this town. My understanding of it is that everybody died in that fire. All of the cult members who were present died in that fire. Silent Hill, as we experience it in the movie, is a purgatory-like state that Alessa, having made a deal with the devil, the actual real-life devil, now is constantly trying to get revenge on the people who had put her in this terrible state where she has third-degree burns across 100% of her body. And we have this fight between the two forces. The overworld takes over when Alessa's power is too great. And as they pray, and the opposite of her power, because it's not necessarily good.
Yeah.
They're not good Christians in that sense, but it is sort of like using God is going to be the opposite of whatever Satan is. So they're able to push it away, go out and scavenge for food. And as it comes back, they use this like siren to signal the other world is coming. All of that stuff to me is like the coolest thing. I really, really enjoy it. But I'm interested to hear what's your negatives. What do we got here?
I like a lot of what is done in this movie. Like you mentioned, the sort of praying away the apocalypse thing, I think is great. And the scavenging that they do, I think makes a lot more sense than in the game, where it's sort of disconnected. Honestly, I think maybe if Silent Hill was made, 15 years later, I think it would end up being a lot more like the movie, just because it's a lot easier to make like three people, three characters worth of voice acting, three character models in a PS1 game than it would be for like a whole like RE4 village,
Right.
So I think on that end, it almost, it kind of takes the simplicity of Silent Hill 1, which I think is a good thing for that game. But if it wasn't simple, like a movie would have to be, it takes that and it expounds upon it in a way that makes sense. I like that that they're using the sirens, and that the sirens, they're not really explained in the original game. But the idea that the sirens are just like some creepy thing that happens before the other world takes over is like, I don't know. That's, kind of boring, I guess.
Hmm.
But the fact that it's the cult signifying, hey, you got to get home, basically, I like that.
Mhm.
And I don't really have an issue with the Salem witch trials aspect of it. The part that really that I don't like that they change is that it's almost framed in this good versus evil sense. That ironically, despite the fact that kind of Alessa is taking the place of Satan, and there's a religious cult following God, Alessa essentially like the good of the town that is forced to be evil, essentially. But she is good, the cult is bad, and that is almost how the story is framed. We got to save Alessa, we got to save Sharon. In the game, it is more of a tragic villain almost, because it is these people trying to take power, rather than trying to cleanse, the city. I think it's much more. It leads me to much more satisfaction when, I see a lady ripped apart because she was power hungry and took advantage of all these cult members to essentially bring up a god and become all powerful. That's much more deserved, I think, than the Christabella that we have in the movie, where Christabella, other than burning a child, kind of almost a good person, or even in her view, she's a good person. She's religious. They got to get rid of the devil, so we got to burn the child at the stake to save the town. And then she literally ends up saving the town. She is the reason the members of the cult are still alive. And she is what can keep the apocalypse at bay, essentially, by making these people, bringing them together and praying. And so on one hand, you kind of have the good people are evil and the evil people are good in this movie, which is cool. But the tragic feeling of Alessa was a good child turned evil is still present in the movie. But the good church people are turned evil doesn't really happen in the movie. Because to them, and especially to Christabella and to all of the cult, even by the last frame of the movie, they're still the good ones in their frame. Whereas the framing that we are going to treat this girl so horrifically that it will imbue us with power, and we don't care. Like, this is gonna be the most excruciating human experience anyone has ever had in their life, just so we can feel some sort of power. Is I think a lot more. It's not even tragic. It's just actually evil,
Yeah.
Like, and the sense that it's even talked about in the third game a lot, where like there's almost this sense that the cult in Silent Hill was much the same as the cult in the movie, where they are the good ones keeping the evil at bay. And then these kind of evil people in the church start to take over or to start guiding the cult to an evil route. I think matches even the real life much more, where most of your cult members, or not cult members, church members are generally fine people. But it is bad people taking advantage of that power and leading them somewhere bad. The movie is like the cult is basically, she's trying to cleanse the town. Now she's trying to keep the town from dying. I'm not really rooting for Alessa to kill Christabella at all. Other than the fact that, obviously she wants revenge for doing those horrible things. In Christabella's mind, and maybe even in reality, in the movie's reality, maybe they had to do that to Alessa in order to stop the apocalypse from actually happening. Maybe what if she was actually the spawn of Satan or something, and them burning her stopped the apocalypse from consuming the whole world? It's just, it's almost simplified you know, to the point where like in a 2-hour movie, it's a lot easier to make that the plot than the more intricate plot of the game. But
I can see where you're coming from though, because that's an interesting point you bring up, because there isn't necessarily a good guy in the story, and that is true. I think that was the point, in that here's Rose looking for her daughter, and she's caught up in this thing that's bigger than her, of these two non-good forces at war with each other, and she's kind of forced to choose a side in order to get her daughter. I think I would have to imagine that Christoph Gans was trying to tell a story of her being the central good and her love for her daughter being the good guy in the scenario, and then having, it's like the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 4, where you're in the middle of this fight between two factions and you're pitting one against the other for your own benefit or whatever, because you're trying to do the good thing in this scenario. I would probably imagine that was more the meaning there than like, I mean, it could be that Christoph Gans like really has a negative view of religion, and we were all meant to see the devil coming into the church as like, hell yeah, they're finally getting their comeuppance.
Yeah.
Which, I won't lie, the part of me that loves black metal and punk rock and heavy metal did feel that way during that scene. So I was satiated in that sense. But the more reasonable film critic-esque aspect of me is probably more leaning towards Rose and Sharon being the good people caught up in a situation of two bad sides.
Yeah. And I can see that. And that's, I don't think the plot is like offensive, or anything. Like, I don't think it's that bad. I just think the game is better in that sense. It removes the nuance from the villains that made them like a Bond villain that's evil just because they want to be evil is much less interesting. And I care much less about them getting, or, the good guys getting revenge or whatever, if they're just evil because they're like, or like the Marvel thing, or like, and that maybe that's unfair to put on just Marvel, but like the kind of blockbuster, I want to kill everyone because humans, they're not, they're not the right creature. I'm trying to make the perfect human or whatever. Like Alien, the plot of some of the Alien movies are like, the humans are bad because we need to get rid of them so we can bring this new, like, better human, or I need to kill all the humans because humans are bad people kind of thing. Like I no longer care then about the good guys winning, because it's just like kind of stock standard evil guy stuff. And the strongest points, which actually you mentioned that I didn't like the cult in Silent Hill 1 when we played it. And I actually can't remember if I liked it or not.
I remember you saying that you felt that it was one of your least favorite aspects. Because, I think it was during the Silent Hill 2 thing, is we had a discussion about how there is sort of a divide as people who like the cult, or people who want to see the more serialized nature of Silent Hill 2, where it's just like things happening to people that are necessarily kind of unrelated to each other.
I think it was, because I can't remember if I liked it in Silent Hill 1 or not. But I think maybe what you're thinking of, because I really didn't like it in Silent Hill 2, because to me, it kind of made no sense that the cult was also involved when it's more James's story. But I can't remember. I might not have liked it in Silent Hill 1. I actually can't remember. Either way, I really like it now that I've had time to think about it.
Fair enough.
And back to my point of stuff being changed so that it works as a movie, that like, the end of Silent Hill 1 I love, where like it's Harry versus a god, basically. But his and maybe that's a little cliche, like his love for his daughter or whatever is what like gets him to defeat it against all odds. But like him coming together with Sybil, just like Sybil is generally a good person, and Harry really, really loves his daughter. And so they're able to come together, and because there is sort of a moral ground that they stand on that the other people don't, these very, very horrible people, that ends up being their downfall, is that they're able to stand up against that and fight and kill this god and walk away safely. And that goes back to like why I don't like Sybil dying, because she doesn't do anything bad. She literally doesn't deserve to die. And so I think that's one thing where maybe Christoph Gans was sitting there, was like, how do I make the cult, how do I make it feel, or how do I reasonably give the audience enough reason to hate the cult that this ending scene of them all horrifically dying is earned.
That's what I was going to say when you were saying that, but we hadn't gotten to that point yet. Yeah, he was setting up a scenario where we wouldn't feel like terrible people for watching these people get torn apart by barbed wire.
I mean, to his credit, I don't feel terrible. I think it's pretty sick, but it's also, you know, in a weird way, because they're so evil, I don't feel as vindicated when they do die, because they're just so kind of one note, you know? And so if I had to change anything about the movie to make it, you know, more what my perfect image of a Silent Hill movie would be like, it is, I mean, you could have very easily done this with the runtime by just getting rid of all the Chris stuff and then use that time to build up the cult a bit more. And I think I even remember in your video you mentioned like there wasn't, the executives or whatever didn't think there was like enough male presence in the movie.
They didn't think it would sell because of that.
There's in the original game, there's you know, there's Dahlia, obviously. There's the woman cult leader who I don't think's named Christabella. I can't remember her name in the game.
No, Dahlia is the cult leader, and
Dahlia's the cult leader.
Yeah. Are you thinking of Claudia from part 3?
Oh, Claudia, that's who I'm thinking of. Thank you.
Sister,
So like, you know, there, and there's also the I forget who's the doctor, maybe, right, in the first game.
Dr. Kaufman is a guy.
There are men you could have added in those parts to add more men in the movie or whatever.
Well, listen, we're jumping over the real issue here. Is why this is going to sound such like a baby thing, but why did it have to be Rose and not Harry? And there's an answer for that, because Christoph Gans, after reading about the plot of Silent Hill 1, thought it wasn't as believable for audiences to think that a guy would love his daughter, a father would love his daughter so much that he would go to hell to get her. So he was like, no, I knew in my mind that it was only a mother who would do that. So he changed it to a woman. Is his reasoning for it, which is strange.
That is so stupid, first of all. I do kind of like that it's Rose though, because I do like the phrase that gets repeated as like, to a child, mother is God, right? And so instead of there being this big God creature that they fight at the end of the movie, which you couldn't really do in a movie that well as you could in a game, the God of the story is essentially the, you know, Dahlia and Rose and them being the mother of Alessa and Sharon that kind of guides the end of the plot. And so I feel like it works in that way. But also like why, because now that I'm thinking about that, like the main audience for a horror movie anyway is mostly males, like demographically. So the fact that it's a scary horror movie, especially the fact that it's a Silent Hill movie, like pre-2010, where there weren't many females playing video games, you're going to have the male audience there already. Like that's, you don't need males to get males to come see it. If anything, you need more of a female presence so that females will go see it. So the reasoning, we need more men in the movie is just like the stupidest thing imaginable. And
you can kind of see what that, you know, production agreed, because the male presence they did put in the movie was not very good. And the scenes were universally disliked.
And maybe part of that again is that, you know, they added it in reshoots at the end or whatever. So they're maybe if you were able, if you got that note earlier on, right, and you could maybe tie Dr. Kaufman into it or something, or even just make the officer Gucci, make him evil instead of good, right? Make him like the cop, like the corrupt police commissioner or something that let that essentially murder happen. You could have done something, right? But I think maybe the biggest issue that it ended up causing was the fact that it was just shoehorned in.
Yeah, of course. It was disjointed as hell, and
Yeah.
Gucci provided exposition for an event that would be better explained later when Alessa recounts all of these
And it
things.
is explained later. So it's explained twice, you know, like,
So you can really feel, like, I could tell once I had told you that those have been reshoots, that all
mhm.
the lights started
Yeah.
going off in your head.
Yeah.
It's hard not to see that as a very obvious, like, there,
Yeah.
like,
So yeah, again, my biggest takeaway, my biggest issue is that I think,
mm,
well, beyond the we need more men in this movie or whatever stupid ass reshoots.
yeah.
It's the nuance I think that is lost. Which, you know, we talked a little bit about the Silent Hill 2 movie. That looks kind of bad for Silent Hill 2 fans. You know, I'm
Mm,
sorry. I don't know if this guy's
yeah.
the right guy to do the Silent Hill 2 movie, but
Even
also,
though I did enjoy this movie,
mhm,
imagining Christoph Gans's very blunt, very obvious. For example, like, I mean, you pointed it out. Every single thing that takes place in this movie is in your face. It is spelled out loud for you. Even
mhm,
the ambiguous ending is only ambiguous because it's not said out loud.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
because it's hinted at in
mhm,
any way, shape, or form. It's shown to you visually. They just don't say anything
yeah.
about it.
Um, and you know, for my part, my favorite parts of Silent Hill 2, and the reason why I ended up liking the enhanced edition better was because the
Mm,
thing that drew me most to the game were the 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 kind of tragic romance, and the actual believability of the characters being stuck in a nightmare essentially,
mm,
um, rather than the dreamlike elements. And so for me, you know, this bodes well. I might love
yeah.
this Silent Hill 2 movie, but
Depending on who
uh,
they get to play the characters, yeah.
yeah. And maybe honestly that could be why I end up liking the Silent Hill 2 remake better, because it looks like from everything we've seen, while it still has a very dreamlike feel, the
Mhm,
performances that, and they've gotten everything we've seen so far, I think, from the actors is really like phenomenal so far.
mhm,
No one feels like a badly casted voice in the game. And
yeah,
again, you know, we only have like 3 trailers, but it feels like they spent time and like, okay, who's someone that fits the character, but who's actually has the talent to back it up. Unlike maybe Sharon in this movie. Um, so I think we have 2 possible outcomes here.
mm,
After I've seen the original Silent Hill 2 game, and after I have
mhm,
seen Christoph Gans's work in the first Silent Hill movie, I can see, weirdly, I needed to watch the Silent Hill 1 movie to be able to give a good judgment on the Silent Hill 2 movie.
mm,
But I think it could potentially be really good. I just
mm,
think the way it's looking right now, Silent Hill fans aren't going to like it, as Silent Hill fans usually don't. And
yeah.
I'm going to sit here and it's going to be the best movie I watched this year. And I don't care. And I don't care. And I'm going to give it 5 stars on Letterboxd, and you can weep,
You can't
and I don't
stop
care.
him.
Yeah. Um,
I
okay.
could see where you're coming from because, as a hardcore Silent Hill fan and one of the, uh, like, hard lore aficionados, one of the guys who sticks to the lore as opposed to the interpretations, I also really enjoyed the Silent Hill movie.
Mhm.
Um, Now that does require a portion of me to push all of the lore to the side and just experience it as a very cool artistic interpretation of all the things I saw in the game. And that is what it is. It is a very incorrect. I mean, like, if like I was talking about before, if you watch the pre-release and making of media, he's talking Christoph Gans, and he's like, I watched the Silent Hill movie and I thought to myself, of course, it is doppelgangers. Like, no, who no. And then, like, he got the idea of Satan from the actress that plays Sharon,
Mhm.
saying like, "Oh, I'm so happy I get to play the devil." And then he goes,
Mm.
"Of course,
Oh,
she's the devil."
of course.
Like, so he is incorrect in everything he does in the movie, but it's visually very
And
interesting. and it's thematically very interesting.
I
I
think
like it a lot.
importantly, even though he might not get it, I think he's doing it out of love for the original games, which by and far is the most important thing.
Compared to something like Welcome to Raccoon
Yeah.
City, which was
Which
done
I did enjoy, to be fair. I really liked. That
so
was another
much.
4.5
We
star
should
for
do
me on Letterboxd.
no way,
Yeah.
4.5.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we need to do an episode about that.
Where like I think here's my scientific method hypothesis. Except I forget how hypotheses are supposed to be worded, so this is not a hypothesis at all. This is just the theory I have in my head about video game adaptations.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got you.
There are two routes you can go when you're adapting a video game, and the route that is normally taken is somewhere in the middle, where you're paying homage to the original game, or the original medium, and you're adapting the story and the characters, and maybe you're keeping the plot the exact same, something like The Last of Us TV, right? And then on the other side, you have, this is a really great world. The people behind it really love and understand what the games are going for, but we're never going to be able to do what the game does because most games aren't like The Last of Us and they aren't 90% story. So we're going to just take the world and the thematic elements and make something out of that, like the Fallout TV show.
Okay. Yeah.
And those are maybe the two best examples of like video game adaptations ever. Right.
Agreed. Well, I haven't seen The Last of Us, but I will say Fallout was just phenomenal. I had my issues with it in some in a critical sense, but as a show that's entertaining and
as a
stays
Fallout,
thematically true. Yeah.
And personally, I would much rather a movie be a better adaptation of the original thing than being a better movie. Okay,
that's fair.
And so I think this movie is able to not fall into the trap that a lot of video game movies fall, where it's right in the middle, where we're kind of doing the games and we're also kind of changing things out of respect for the games. But I do think, even though it's not right in the middle, I think it falls somewhere maybe to like a couple points to the right of that scale. Like,
well, I think the reason why I think is the spirit behind why it's not accurate, because within this spectrum that we've created, there is a subspectrum of reasoning. And most of the time, I've talked about this when I stream, when people make video game adaptations cinematically, there's this tendency for writers to think, well, it's a video game, so obviously the writing's gonna be terrible. I'm gonna have to rewrite everything. All of these events, as opposed to someone approaching it and saying, here's a list of events on a timeline we have. I need to adapt this for a 3-act structure instead, which you don't see very often because it's mostly people who think it's a video game. It's a lower form of art compared to what I'm into. Therefore, I'm going to have to grace it with my incredible knowledge of script writing or whatever it is. And with Christoph Gans, the Silent Hill movie wasn't made as I know better than the game. This was his genuine interpretation of the events of the game, which is why it does feel, at the very least, spiritually true to the series, even when it's completely factually not.
Yeah. And that kind of points to like why I think both ironically why this movie is good and why it's bad is that I'm always the fan of, I would rather see a different interpretation of the things on screen rather than the exact things in the game. Obviously, I think The Last of Us show is good and it basically does the exact same thing. But unless you're like right there, you're on 0 to 10, you're at 0.00, right? On this is exactly what happens in the video games.
Yeah.
You mess it up. And this movie takes the chance to head to the other side of the scale. I just don't think it gets there the full way. I think it's trying so much to be an interpretation of the original game and a lot of stuff from Silent Hill 2 as well. Yeah. Where that's the stuff that kind of brings it down. Is if it you know, if you want to tell the story of Harry Mason and his daughter, tell the story of Harry Mason and his daughter.
Yeah.
But Rose and Sharon, they're a good version of those events.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part works. But then when you start getting into the cult and you start getting into the surrounding elements of just the parental relationship of Rose and Sharon, that's where the stuff starts to fall apart. I think maybe if he wasn't so focused on doing that and trying to be at a midpoint, I think Christoph Gans tried to shoot for the middle, you know, which is where all of the bad movies go. And thankfully, because of his love and I was going to say love and understanding, maybe just love of the original games.
Appreciation. Yeah, let's say.
It ends up thankfully not falling in the middle.
Yeah. Which I think honestly was not on purpose. I think his goal was to recreate like we were talking about, but I think he accidentally made the movie good.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be good. And because I'm so hardcore with sticking true to a very set series of events with Silent Hill, I shouldn't like it as much as I do. But you and I both kind of for different reasons kind of arrive at the same conclusion to where it's just, it's spiritually there and it's visually interesting. And
so
it's such a cool interpretation of the stuff that goes on in the game that I really could care less if it's accurate to the events of the game. It's just doing such a good job of keeping me entertained with something that's so thematically similar. You could squint and see a little bit of Silent Hill in there, you know?
I think it does. You mentioned like Christoph Gans kind of maybe he couldn't make a great movie, but he's certainly not like an idiot, you know?
Yeah.
And earlier you're talking like there's a lot of writers that come to a video game and they're like, okay, well, it's a video game, so the writing sucks, which to be fair, a lot of video game writing does suck because usually it is the gameplay that is made and then, you know, they have a narrative design guy in the back and they're like, please make this work from one scene to the next. And so partly I can understand that, but partly that's also because these people are really, really great filmmakers and they're really great writers for film. And maybe they don't play video games. They don't understand video games. And if you fall on that side, you're going to want to make things better. And maybe it does end up being a better movie than what it would have been, but it's no longer the game, right? It's not the same universe. It's not the same theme. It's just not the same. And then you have some examples where like, they have a lot of love for stuff. And you know, they kind of know what they're doing in terms of the original medium or the original, IP, but they're not very good filmmakers. And again, I think Christoph falls right in the middle. Where like he knows how to make a great visual scene. Obviously, there's so many good visuals in this movie, and I would not say it's poorly directed by all means. But I also think maybe if he was a little bit better of a filmmaker, there's some stuff that he would have realized. And if he was any worse of a filmmaker, there would have been some stuff that wouldn't have been changed for the worse. And so I kind of look at it. I'm like, I have a couple issues with it, but this might be the best Silent Hill movie we could have gotten, that we could have asked for. You know, like, yeah, it could be better, but realistically, can it be better? It reminds me a lot of like Fede Alvarez, who made Alien Romulus. I wouldn't say he's the best director of all time, but he certainly knows how to like create suspense and create good visuals. And Alien Romulus is like, I mean, it takes place in between two Alien movies, but it is so heavily inspired by Alien Isolation that like it's basically Alien Isolation the movie at points.
Interesting. I didn't know. I haven't seen it yet.
It's not like plot or anything, but just like the visual design and feeling that it has is like 1-to-1 how it feels in the game. And I think he even said like, you know, it wasn't on purpose, but Alien Isolation, the game, kind of extols the thematic elements of Alien so well that if you want to hit the themes of the original movie without just making the original movie, you're going to end up at the same point. And so again, watching I think I actually watched Alien Romulus the day before I watched the Silent Hill movie for the first time. So it was like fresh on my mind originally. It has so many parallels to it. Same with Alien Romulus. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I don't know if I would have wanted it to be any different. You know, it does what it needs to with the original IP, and it comes from a place of love for the original IP. And so I can excuse the horrible CGI Ian Holmes. I can excuse some of the plot holes, and I can excuse the mid-level writing in some of the scenes, because it knows how to create that vibe, you know?
Yeah. It does. It produces a very killer vibe, and I'm right there with you. I think that there are things about the movie that a really good director would have changed, but I also think it is probably one of the best video game to movie adaptations that we have. You know,
I'm trying to look. I think we talked about this. Me and Dobu talked about this in the Discord of like, there are still no like good video game movies. Like people always talk. It's so often people are like, oh, you know, we found out that you can adapt video games so well now, but like there are no movies. They're all TV shows and series that are good.
Did they actually make the Uncharted movie?
Yeah,
Is that like
that's
that
a real movie.
happened?
I watched it.
Was it good?
No.
That felt like something that's an easy home run, dude, for a movie,
listen,
right?
All they had to do to fix this movie, the plot's like whatever, right? The visual direction, whatever. All they had to do was make Mark Wahlberg Nathan Drake. Mark Wahlberg is a perfect Uncharted 4 Nathan Drake. He could have done it perfectly. But because they went for like young Nathan Drake still trying to figure stuff out, and they cast Tom Holland, not a horrible actor, certainly not Nathan Drake. That was their biggest mistake, because Mark Wahlberg is not Sully at all. But he could be such, like, I was playing Uncharted 4. I just finished it for the first time like last month. And the end of the game, like old Nathan Drake, even after the events of Uncharted 4, he's like that's basically Mark Wahlberg, you know? Like that he could do it so well. And maybe not even Uncharted 4 Nathan Drake, but like retired Nathan Drake or something. I think he could pull off, because he's getting pretty old. But man, it had a lot of potential. I'll say that. But I think
here's a question.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Max Payne movie?
I've seen the first third of it.
Okay.
Because
have you played any of the Max Payne games with any sort of completion?
I played 1 and 2, and I've played a third of 3.
Fair enough. That's a good starting point. Let's plan out another one of these for the Max Payne movie. That would be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. That's another one where like my impressions from the first third of the movie were like, this is great. You know, they kind of know what they're doing, but Mark Wahlberg, not Max Payne, you know, get someone else.
It's not really even his fault. It's like, how do you fill James McCaffrey's just fucking gravelly voiced boots?
I think the way to do it,
a hard ass in that role.
I think the way to do it is like the sort of Alan Wake 2 way, where you play it off as like, okay, this is like we're making an adaptation of the adaptation, you know? Like we got Sam, like I think the only person that you can do to play Max Payne is Sam Lake. And the only voice you can do is James McCaffrey. And if you don't have them together, it's not Max Payne. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, James McCaffrey has passed. So you can't have James McCaffrey voicing it. So the only way I think I'm going to like the Max Payne remakes and or I guess they said they were going to do an Alan Wake movie TV show. So maybe there is no Max Payne in that, but even if they have a Max Payne like they do in Alan Wake 2, the only way it's going to work for me is if it's Sam Lake. Even though Sam Lake can't do the voice, he is also, 50% of the character and the facial kind of uncanniness that he can do. And so you could, I don't know, it'd be so stupid to make a movie about making a movie about Max Payne, But on the other hand, you just can't, like, I don't know. What are you going to do? Someone said Kiefer Sutherland as Max Payne. And
no,
I don't think it's going to be as good as James McCaffrey, but I don't know who else would be even like, I don't like out of everyone I know, every voice actor I know, there is no one that can fill James McCaffrey's shoes.
Fact.
Kiefer Sutherland, he could get 10% of the way there. Yeah. Everyone else I think of, they're getting like 1% of the way there. So Kiefer Sutherland might be our best bet.
In the remakes, do you think that they're going to recast McCaffrey, or do you think they're going to reuse previous?
I think they should reuse previous.
God, that's going to be tough to clean up those old recordings.
I know.
I mean, there's a lot of like pops and clicks and room noise.
It was the same thing. It's the same thing though with Metal Gear Solid Delta, where they're like the original voice lines. They're not the best, but you can't recapture that. So maybe it won't. The performances might actually suck. Max Payne 1, even though I love James McCaffrey as Max Payne, his performance isn't as...
he speaks very fast in Max Payne
1. He doesn't have a perfect grip yet. You know, like it takes a couple years in the voice.
Like when you watch like a show, like a cartoon in season 1 versus season 7, they find their voice.
Yeah. And Max Payne 1 isn't perfectly there. Ironically, I think Alan Wake 2 has the best Max Payne, you know, where he's got the voice. I was about
to say,
yeah.
If the remake is Sam Lake visually as Max Payne, as he sort of appears thematically in Alan Wake 2, I mean, I'm sold.
Yeah.
Just put James McCaffrey's voice, mocap,
and
we're good to
honestly,
go, because he looks amazing in that
now
game.
that I'm thinking about it, you could probably do it that Max Payne is like essentially a silent character. Like he doesn't speak. He has an internal monologue.
It's just
he doesn't speak to other characters. Noir. And so you can just reuse the original sound because it's in the comic book in between sections. And then, maybe sometimes he speaks to himself in the game, but like you could get away with it. I don't know. Anyway, that we love tangents here.
This is so good.
I'm looking at video game movies, right? I'm gonna point out some. I want you to tell me if you've watched any of these and if you think it's a good representation of the original. Because I want to decide here and now, even though I haven't watched all of these, Silent Hill 1 could be in the running for best video game movie. First up, we got Super Mario Bros. 1993.
Terrible movie, but very fun to watch.
I got people in my ear telling me it's so good that I gotta watch it, and everything I see about this movie looks horrifying.
It's awful.
Like I don't get nightmares from Silent Hill, but I could get nightmares from this movie.
It's so bad, but as a movie that was made at the time that it was made, it's very cyberpunk.
And also, what are you gonna do with Mario?
They didn't have anything to work with at all.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And the casting was awful, but also perfect. It's one of those movies where at the time you could see why film critics hated it, but watching it in retrospect now, it is very entertaining.
Totally. We got Street Fighter 1994.
I think that was bad and badly executed because the fight choreography was not amazing. And for a fighting game movie,
Street Fighter,
I expected like really good martial arts sort of choreography. And what you get is very bog standard, especially for the time for Jean-Claude movies. Yeah. It doesn't even rank in the top 3.
We got Mortal Kombat 1995.
Mortal Kombat, I had a similar problem with. The fights weren't as great looking, but I think it did a pretty good job of staying true to the lore and the world.
Okay. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I'm not a huge Mortal Kombat person, so I can't really give a fair judgment on it. But
it's pretty 1-to-1 for the story.
I hate everything that Paul W.S. Anderson has ever touched in his life, so I cannot.
I didn't even know that was his movie. Interesting.
Director Paul W.S. Anderson. So I can't say I will never watch that movie because he made it. So skipping ahead here a little, we got Resident Evil, another Paul W.S. Anderson. I watched this movie a couple months
It's an
ago.
okay enough movie. It's obviously not a good Resident Evil property.
I disagree completely. I think it is maybe the top 10 worst movies I have ever watched in my life.
Okay,
Like,
I could see that because the last time I rewatched it, I did find a lot of problems with it coming from a guy who enjoys zombie movies, and there's almost no zombies in it for 2/3 of the runtime.
It's like, oh my God, I could rant about this we could have a whole episode about Resident Evil.
I do enjoy it, but I could see you not liking it and also still agree with that.
It is just like, how do we, it's like if someone read the tagline or like the 30-second elevator pitch of the first 2 Resident Evil games. And we're like, oh, that sounds so cool. I'm going to make that into a movie. And then the games never existed. And they just like turned like that kind of idea into a movie. Yeah. And then they also didn't make it a very good movie either. So I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I agree. I think the wire foo looks terrible. I like it. I'm a fan of zombie movies. There are aspects of it that are redeeming to me in a zombie movie sense, but also as a guy who likes zombie movies, they almost never show up. And when they do, it's only in, I think I mapped it. I did a video on Resident Evil, the movie, and I tracked the amount of time that zombies are on screen. And it's not even like, I don't even think it's 12 minutes of the runtime. I swear to God.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say that one's not the best video game movie of all time.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Actually, at some point, if we ever do Resident Evil, which is probably likely at some point in, 3 years when we're done with Silent Hill, I would like to watch all the movies because I've seen the first one and that's it. I didn't continue on, but something in me, I just want to see how bad they get, They
get worse as they go, which is crazy to think about.
That is,
but almost each one has something that redeems it in one way or another, as opposed to the very last entry in the series, which is irredeemable.
Okay.
It is terrible. It is
Sounds
such
good.
utter garbage.
And I'm happy right now living in my world of only having seen Welcome to Raccoon City, which I enjoyed, and Infinite Darkness, which I enjoyed. So, I'm a big fan of all the Resident Evil adaptations I've seen. I can't wait for that to be completely taken up by my hatred for those movies.
You'll never watch the TV show. It is so bad.
Resident Evil I have seen the Resident Evil TV show. And you know what?
Don't do this to me. Don't.
I really liked the like school part of it. The
really?
past in the past part of it. Not because it was Resident Evil, but I thought it was like a cool, like if it wasn't Resident Evil and just like not like a Stranger Things, but like a Netflix style, almost like young adult kind of show.
Yeah.
And you stripped away all the like current day apocalypse stuff. I thought it could have been pretty good. Obviously, like I love some of the things in that. I'm trying to look up like a plot summary to remember what even happened across those episodes. Everything that was current day was just like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like it's like it was like a futuristic apocalypse for some reason. Like
it was super. It was terrible. The zombies had like different color blood. It was very annoying. It made no sense whatsoever. But my biggest problem with it is that it was so boring that it wasn't even interesting enough. When I did my video on it, I don't even know what to say.
And
almost nothing happened throughout it.
The clones of Wesker.
That's what I was about to say. There's a scene with like 4 or 5 Lance Reddicks in the same room. And I love Lance Reddick.
I love Lance Reddick.
He's so amazing. He was so poorly cast in that role. And to have him as Wesker with this really bad hair job on, it was like,
and Wesker's God. like, okay, I've seen some people on Twitter be like, oh, you misunderstood the games if you think Wesker is like a white supremacist like type guy, but like that is the vibe that he gives off a lot. Is like really,
I wouldn't say
not
white
like not like white
supremacist
supremacist, but like he has a lot of the like Hallmark. I don't want to say like Hitler vibes, but like really just like I'm gonna kill people. Again, the stupid like.
But
humans are stupid.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna destroy everything.
Like Ubermensch role.
Yeah,
where he is a blonde hair guy,
like,
and he is the super soldier, like Captain America type of guy.
And when I say white supremacist, I don't mean like actually like the white race is the supreme race, like, but like he is the supreme race, kind of thing.
Okay.
And like Lance Reddick, again, I love Lance Reddick, but he's like the best villain that he can do is a tragic villain, and very hard to do that kind of thing, but it's still not Wesker. And
he played a pretty good villain in Remedy's. I always forget the name of this game.
Quantum Break.
Quantum Break.
But he's in like 3 minutes of that game.
Well, that's if you don't watch the show.
Well, I know,
but watch the live action cutscenes.
But he's not important.
In it a lot,
he's not important
he's
most
such
of it.
a good like foil for the villain.
Yeah.
He does a really good job of being very diabolical, which makes sense because his voice is always like he sounds like he'd be a diabolical guy. But you can't cast him as Wesker.
And I think he really works as Jade and Billy's dad too, like father that has something to hide.
Well cast. Sure.
And I think I do kind of like the clones because I like his brother that's like the Olive Garden breadsticks. Wesker is so funny.
It was hilarious. It was so stupid.
If you just cut out all of the present day stuff and you had it like a young adult kind of it's not very Resident Evil. You can make it Resident Evil with like Umbrella is secretly making the dogs in the lab or whatever. I don't care. But it had potential. And then they were like, we got to make it more Resident Evil because we're going to use the Resident Evil name to get people to watch this in the first place. They could have made it like, because I think about it, I'm like, if they didn't make it Resident Evil, no one would watch it. And there would be no money there that they could use to make this movie or make this TV show.
No, man, they're giving out Netflix shows pretty readily. I feel like you could have made a young adult high school sci-fi leaning in the direction of Resident Evil thing because I could probably type that into Netflix and find something for you
probably
by a French director or something. You know what I mean? Like I feel like in today's market, we had to make it this way or else they wouldn't, sign the papers thing. I don't think it works quite as well because you can just say, hey, I want to insert the dumbest thing ever that already exists on Netflix or Hulu or whatever.
I think it comes down to the corporate focus on IP at fault, like usual most of the time. That's like I get that making something new is risky, but if you can either tie it to Resident Evil and then not make it anything like Resident Evil, which will make a lot of Resident Evil fans mad, sure.
Yeah.
But then you'll have a better TV show and you'll still get the general populace. It's like, oh, I remember Resident Evil when I was a kid. We're gonna load that up on Netflix. You still get that audience and it's still a good piece of media. But then at that point, why are you making it Resident Evil? I pulled up the Wikipedia for that. Lance Reddick plays as Dr. Albert quotes Al Wesker, which is Jade and Billy's father. Bert Wesker, Jade and Billy's uncle and Al's brother.
Bert is the one that shows up.
I love Bert. So good. Scene. I don't know. Lance Reddick, man, he can be the funniest and the scariest person at the same time. So good.
He was a true talent. The show that he was in, Fringe, was like one of my top sci-fi shows ever.
I really want to watch The Wire because he's in a couple seasons of The Wire.
Super good.
And I really want to watch that. Literally just for him. He's also apparently Zeus in the Percy Jackson TV show, which I've heard is not very good, but like Lance Reddick is good, So I kind of want to watch it just to see him. And then, so he plays as Dr. Albert Al Wesker, Bert Wesker, Al B. Wesker, and Albert Wesker. And then Albert Wesker asterisk has multiple clones of himself.
I didn't even realize that when I watched the show that each one is some sort of like anagram of Albert.
It's Al, Bert, Al B, Albert.
I hate my life. That's incredible. That makes me like the show more somehow.
Lisa Trevor? Casey B. Dolan co-stars as Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor was in the TV show?
Was she the woman who like ran Umbrella? I don't remember who Lisa Trevor.
That's
I don't remember her name in the show.
That's Evelyn Marcus, right?
Yeah. Evelyn
Marcus.
Yeah, that brings back memories.
Resident Evil TV. I don't even remember this.
Do this now.
Lisa Trevor. I can't even find a photo online. It's all Welcome to Raccoon City.
So there's no way.
Who is
I would have
this?
remembered that, I feel like.
She's on the Wikipedia. Lisa Trevor. Okay, this looks like it's from the TV show.
But you don't recognize her as a character?
Oh, apparently, okay. I see what it is. So when they're I think it's when they're in the basement of their house and they like play a cassette. There's a cassette about Lisa Trevor.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. All right.
Moving on from that, we got, I'm skipping a lot of these because we got a lot of Uwe Boll, and none of those are in contention.
Doesn't count. Yeah.
The Doom movie, I have heard, is a good time.
So there's two of them. The first one with The Rock and Carl Urban. It's not the worst time ever. No, it's not awful. It is what you would imagine like a dumb shooty movie would be.
Okay, let's see. We got DOA, Dead or Alive.
I never watched that. That was a very 2000s movie. There's a lot of low riding jeans and visible thongs in that one.
It crazy box office numbers here. $7.5 million.
Is that good or bad?
The first Resident Evil movie, for example, $102 million.
Okay.
So that lets you know where it stands. No, that's Uwe Boll. Oh, Hitman. Hitman he's definitely a movie.
That's the one with Timothy Oliphant in it, right? The first one. I saw the one after that. Oh no, wait, maybe it was. There's like a female main character in one of them.
in the first one, I think.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen.
I remember next to nothing. I watched it on a plane, which could have been the culprit, but I don't remember a single thing about it that makes it stand out as like interesting.
I think it was like a good adaptation of the original Hitman games, because even though the original Hitman games are good, they don't have much going for them in like story or anything. Like they have good gameplay, you know.
Yeah, they purposefully like obfuscate everything.
Yeah, and so I think the movie does a good job of that. Obviously, once you get to like, not Blood Money. Is it Blood Money? Is that what it's called?
Really good. I love Blood Money.
Is that a game? Is that a real game? I didn't just make that up. Okay, Blood Money then.
No, it is.
By the time like Blood Money happens and Absolution, I think the game surpassed that movie by far. But you know, they were working with what they had, I guess. Then we got Max Payne.
I oddly enjoyed Max Payne, even though, just like Silent Hill, it gets a lot of shit wrong. My only criticism of Max Payne is it takes a very long time for any shootouts to take place, which feels criminal. Yeah.
I do like, again, I've only seen the first third, but I like the Nordic, the Nordic spiritual elements of
like iconography and stuff.
The game. They go really hard on in the movies, in the first third at least. And even though it's not like what happened in the game or whatever. I like that from a visual and thematic sense. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it makes the movie very visually interesting as opposed to just like, V-head junkies rotting in an alleyway.
We got 0% Rotten Tomato, 1.6 million at the box office. Tekken.
I didn't know there was a Tekken
Neither
movie.
did I.
That's wild.
Apparently the director, who was experienced in sports movies, decided to make Tekken focus on realism, resulting in the complete removal of supernatural elements.
No way. It had to be like a really small budget. I would have at least seen the advertising.
30 million.
Wow.
So like 60 probably after advertising.
Damn.
Yeah. Which is, let me think. This is 2009. So it's pretty close to Silent Hill. Silent Hill had what, 50?
I worked at a movie theater at the time. I would have seen the trailer at the very. That's
it came out in 2010.
I can't even remember it.
Came out in 2010.
Wow.
So,
damn.
Yeah. Prince of Persia. With
I never watched that, but I love Jake Gyllenhaal.
I love Jake Gyllenhaal too. I would rather like if I'm sitting down and I want to watch a video game movie, I think I would rather watch the Assassin's Creed movie because the movies themselves seem very similar from one to another.
Yeah.
And the Assassin's Creed one looks a little bit more interesting from the outside. I don't know if it's better or not, but
Jake Gyllenhaal had an incredible physique in the Prince of Persia movie. That's all I remember.
We got more Resident Evil movies. Silent Hill Revelation.
Dude, you have no idea. I want you to watch that so bad, just so you can hurt like I do. It's so fucking bad.
Okay, we got Tomb Raider.
Oh, I remember the first Tomb Raider being okay enough. I never really liked Angelina Jolie as an actress, but I didn't get into the style of her as Lara Croft. That was another one that was very 2000s. But it was it's okay enough for what it was.
We got Warcraft. I didn't know there was.
I never watched that. I think it was a CG movie.
Yeah, it looks like it.
If I remember correctly.
If it says Blizzard worked on it, so if Blizzard actually animated it, then I imagine it's pretty good.
Yeah, their CG
but it has a 28% box office, so or Rotten Tomatoes. So maybe it's not very good, but hey, it budget of 160, it made 440 at the box office.
Yeah,
so it made money.
I remember hearing that was like mostly the Chinese market that ate that movie up.
I see. Okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Warcraft, all the Blizzard stuff, I don't like. Growing up, even though I knew they were big, because it's really focused in Asia for especially like Hearthstone and everything, I kind of thought they weren't real games. Like I didn't know that they existed. And I was like, I always hear how much money these esports games make, but because I don't know anyone that has ever played any of these games, I'm like, oh, that's not real. That's that's fake.
Yeah.
We got Detective Pikachu. I think Detective Pikachu is pretty good.
That was pretty fun. But I got a kick out of that.
I made this case that same with the next one, Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think you can really say either of these movies are video game movies. They're based off of properties in video games.
They're not really.
Yeah. Same with
adapting
the Mario movie. Like you're using the characters, but it's not a video game movie. It's a using the IP,
Yeah, like a video game themed movie.
Yeah. We got Monster Hunter.
I never watched that. Did you hear anything about it?
I've heard nothing about this other than obviously Mila Jovovich. How do you say her name? Jovovich.
Emilia Jovovich.
Other that she's also in that movie, and it's Paul W.S. Anderson, so I'm never going to watch it.
It's so wild that even being in the video game sphere, neither of us can remember ever hearing anything.
It's wild to me that Capcom had Paul W.S. Anderson make 6 Resident Evil movies, and they're all just the shittiest thing imaginable. And then they're like, "Can we get you for another one?" You ever hear Monster Hunter?
Well, I mean, to be fair, the Resident Evil movies banked. They did really good numbers.
So stupid. God.
Yeah, it's terrible. It makes you hate humanity,
I'm
but
gonna
they were rocking it, dude. That was like the Fast and Furious series for a while.
I'm trying to sort it by box office. Yeah, all the Resident Evil movies made like 300 million, about
They
250
killed
to
it, dude.
300. Yeah.
Yeah, they were doing really good. And that was like mostly like in the domestic market too.
Okay, we're near the end here, and we still got no good contenders. Obviously we talked about Uncharted earlier. Sonic 2, I haven't seen it, so I can't say anything. But again, I don't know if that really counts. That's still like sort of IP instead of
At that point, though, once you start introducing like Knuckles and stuff, there is in the Sonic Adventure era, there's more of a story.
Yeah.
So maybe I haven't seen the movie, so I
know. I just feel like once you get to a certain point, like with Pokemon, where it started as a game, but you have 100 TV shows. You know, you got CG
there's
movies,
no singular line. To follow.
You got anime. Like it has become a media universe at that point.
Yeah.
You know? Uncharted, we talked about. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City.
Big old boo.
Big old
I don't
yeehaw.
like it as a movie. I would say that there are so many moments in that movie where just from a cinema point of view, it was poorly handled. Like the scene where Chief Irons tries to leave the city and then backs out. They had such a little budget that they couldn't even show you the limit of the city and Umbrella gating it off. All of the cameras were tied in on his face or the hood of his car. It's such a bad movie.
I stood up, hands in the air, clapping when Leon came out of the front of the train with a rocket launcher, and they're like, "Where the hell did you get the rocket launcher?" And he's like, "I found it in first class," and then blows the shit out of the fucking what's his name, Birkin. So
which would have killed them inside of the train car.
But I have never seen a movie that like got me pumped so much.
That's
except
wild as hell,
Welcome to Raccoon City. I love it, and I will never not
love it. I'm gonna forget about you saying that the next time that we talk, so we can maintain a cordial relationship.
Okay. We got one last one. You probably haven't seen it. Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, I didn't know they made a movie for that.
I think this is the only one that contends with Silent Hill. I personally like Welcome to Raccoon City. So in my personal list, that's like in the top 3. But Five Nights at Freddy's does a great job, I think, of adapting the lore. There's not much game to go on, and the lore is messy anyway. So like they can kind of do whatever they want with the movie.
How was it as like a watchable movie?
I think 32% Rotten Tomatoes, I think, is really unfair.
What did Silent Hill get on Rotten Tomatoes?
Let's see. 32%.
Interesting.
That's the secret sauce. 32%.
It's at least as good as Five Nights at Freddy's if we're using
Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City. 32%.
Don't say it. No way. There's something going on here.
They have wildly different Metacritics though, but yeah.
I feel like Welcome to Raccoon City made $0 though.
42 million.
42. That's probably not even the budget.
25 budget. So 50.
I could feel
so they did not make their money back, but they might have made even.
Which means maybe that we could get another Resident Evil property.
I think the big mistake with the movie, I think everyone involved could have made a very good Resident Evil movie if they had more money. But this was at one screen at one of my local theaters for a week, you know?
Yeah.
And no one knew about it. Obviously, I knew about it as like the Resident Evil weirdo, but like if you gave it the money of like that Paul W.S. Anderson got, I think easily it would have been a great movie, you know? But like
I could probably agree with that, yeah.
When they can, like you said, he's trying to escape the city and it's like a 2-lane road with a bridge. Like it kind of takes you out of it. A
single actor with the gun who approaches the car and you can't see anything else.
On one hand, you could have just, if you had the 25 million budget, just make it about the mansion, you know, just focus on the mansion because the mansion was beautiful. The scene of I think it was Chris, he's like in the darkness and
In the
he's
dark.
using his lighter and his gun as light.
Yeah.
So good. That would maybe cheer with joy, that whole scene.
I feel like if you could have stretched that scene out for a long period of time and had them slowly come across zombies and increasingly scary situations, and you had yourself a movie right there.
They kind of tried to do Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 3, and like almost a little bit of Resident Evil 0 even, in terms of like how much they just explained the shit out of Umbrella. And for 25 million, I don't think they
CG
were going to be able to
that
do
one. There was like a practical effect of Chief Irons after the liquor got a hold of him, which looked pretty okay for that kind of a budget. But can we please admit that the Lisa Trevor liquor fight was the worst thing in the entire world?
I mean, again, I think it's one of those things that's like cool.
It's cool
like,
that it broke its jaw. That's sick.
And I think theoretically on paper, like Lisa Trevor essentially being like a good person and saving the heroes is good, because she's kind of another Alessa figure, where like the things that happen to her are unfair. They just didn't have the money to like make it a real fight or do anything, even in the realm of making it look good. So it just kind of doesn't work.
Some of the better aspects of that movie was the keyhole being hidden by a balloon. Very Resident Evil. That felt very survival horror in a sense. I'm struggling. I thought Leon the guy who plays Leon could have made him a really cool character. But he ended up the entire time playing second fiddle to Claire, who was like Rambo and the greatest character with no flaws that's ever existed.
My issue with that was like, first of all, I think the hate that he got for that movie, just completely unfair. Alvin Yogia, I think it's Yogia. I'm not sure. Joe, I can't remember. I don't remember people's names.
It's not like it was his. He didn't write his role.
I know.
Like, he didn't do anything.
I think he did really
poorly.
good, and he talked so much about before that movie released that how much he loves Resident Evil. And I think he's the perfect Resident Evil 4 Leon. Like, I don't think you could cast anyone better than him for RE4 Leon. It's just that he, again,
I could have seen him doing a good job as RE2 Leon, kind of green in the gills, altruistic, wanted to help everybody. He seemed to have that sort of, I could see him pulling that off easily. It's just the movie felt that Claire Redfield was the star of the story. And every single time that Leon had a chance, other than the rocket launcher moment, to do anything at all, Claire always had to save him. She had to pump the shotgun for him. She had to kill the zombie for him, even though he empties a clip. That's all the shooting he does, minus the rocket launcher in the entire movie, is when he shoots a single zombie and doesn't kill it.
I think that all works if you had another hour and a half of a Resident Evil 2 movie to give him character development in the middle instead of just
give him an arc.
Because I like the fact that he has no clue what he's doing. It's his first day as a cop. He should be like a bumbling idiot. His first day as a cop is a zombie apocalypse. But then he does all that, and then he just has a rocket launcher at the end, and now he's cool. Again, they got to tell Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 basically in one movie. They don't have time for that
I think Chief Irons, the guy who played Chief Irons, was genius casting. He did a good job as Chief Irons, especially during that like briefing scene. And like he's so sarcastic. He's such a cunt, and he's so funny. Like he was great. I thought that would have worked. I thought the girl that they cast as Claire was a good, like visually, she looked good and could have been a good Claire. But they wrote her as this like invincible killing machine. And retelling RE2, they were by the skin of their teeth. Leon's getting shot up. Claire's barely protecting Sherry. Ah, man, that felt more cool, and those actors could have portrayed that better.
I think if you again, as it keeps going back to there's too much in this movie in one movie.
Agreed.
I think Claire can be a badass the whole movie. Make her character flaw that she can't protect Sherry as well. Like she can shoot a gun or whatever, but she's so focused on being cool or whatever that now Sherry's in trouble. But you can't. You had like what 20 minutes of Sherry in the whole movie.
I mean, realistically, how do you even approach the idea of making a Resident Evil 2 movie? Because both characters are doing things at different times. Do you follow them and cut from one to the other? Because they are sharing the same generalized, relatively small space. So it'd be weird that they would, not come in contact very often.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would be a strange way to make a movie.
I think there's a way around it. I just think they didn't have the money to think of a way around it.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are all the video game movies, all the good ones. I don't think I could make a compelling case for any of these being better than Silent Hill.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Let me find the list again. I'm like 4 pages ahead. Like I like Five Nights at Freddy's. You haven't seen it, but
no.
I think it's a pretty good movie. Oh, I almost forgot. We forgot one. Borderlands.
Okay. Oh shit. I wouldn't want to judge it because I haven't seen it, but from what I have seen, it's not looking promising.
It's I enjoyed it watching it. I've never played a Borderlands game, and also it has some of the worst CGI I've ever seen. There was a scene, I shit you not, it's a big action scene, and it looks 100% like it was filmed in Fortnite. They're driving this Cybertruck ass truck through a bunch of explosions.
I've seen this. It's like colorful explosions.
It looks like Fortnite. It looks like they took the Unreal Engine or the Fortnite Unreal Engine pack and put the scene in there and put that in the movie. It looks so bad. And also it has just like the most annoying cast. Kevin Hart, Jack Black. In any movie, I hate both of them. They're so annoying. Kate Blanchett does good. I like Jamie Lee Curtis, but like they can't save the movie. It is a bad movie.
Does she do well in the movie? Because that feels like very weird casting for Borderlands. I mean,
who, Kate Blanchett or Jamie Lee Curtis?
Jamie Lee Curtis. Kate Blanchett. Everybody seemed to have complaints about her. I don't know. She felt visually on par for me.
Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis is not in much of the movie. And I know enough about Borderlands to be like, I think Kate Blanchett is fine in her role. I don't know enough to say if Jamie Lee Curtis is good, but I don't think she's in enough of the movie to have changed. If her performance was terrible or amazing, I don't think it would, nothing would have.
I feel like probably they spent most of their budget on casting if they have Kevin Hart and Jack Black. And Jack Black is the top of his career right now, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. Minecraft movie. We're going to be, our whole conversation, it's going to be ruined when the Minecraft movie comes out, and that's the best video game movie
when it turns out to be the greatest movie ever made.
So Steve Jablonsky, that's a real person? That sounds like a Jack Black character. Music by Steve Jablonsky. I'm sorry, Steve.
It does sound like
that's a great name.
That was like his YouTube name was Jablouse or something like that.
Jack Black YouTube. Let's see. Jablinski. That's what it is. Jablinski Games. And the Borderlands movies music is made by Steve Jablonsky.
Dude, perfect. That has to be some sort of like a pen name or something.
All right.
I think I'm confident in saying that Silent Hill is probably the most successfully executed video game to movie adaptation.
I think that there are some TV shows that are obviously a lot better. Some limited series, and some 3D like animation, maybe also like CG stuff, like Death Island or something. That could be potentially better. But yeah, I gotta agree. I think Silent Hill, the best we got. 2006. It is now 2024, and they still haven't figured it out. So
they haven't figured it out.
All the people, all the like film journalists that are like, we can finally make good video game movies. No, we can't. We have like 2. Okay, we have actually, unironically, maybe 2.
That's why it kills me when people say like, "Oh, I want to see a Metal Gear Solid movie," and I'm telling them, just as the old guy, trust me, you don't. Yeah. You do not want that to happen. Not if you love the series. It will take part your heart away,
Mm-hmm.
and it will never give it back.
I am excited at the very least for the Death Stranding movie. Because it's A24.
Visually, that could be insane.
It's A24 who gives their directors a lot of power, and Hideo Kojima is very involved. I don't think he's the like actual director, but I'm sure whatever director that they choose, he has probably chosen. If they're going in that deep, so it'll probably
Are they
be
actually
good.
going to have what's his face in it?
I hope.
I forget his name. I mean, it would only make sense.
Let me see if there's anything. Norman Reedus.
Reedus. That was the.
Let's see. Yeah, they don't have anything on like who it's going to cast, or it might not even be about Sam Porter Bridges or whatever. But I think it has the ability to be good. You know,
it's a world where I could definitely see being potentially further developed in a movie, or at the very least just represented, because it's a very interesting, unique take on like the post-apocalypse sort of genre.
And I think back to what I was saying earlier about Silent Hill, like I would rather a movie be different than the game than be a 1-to-1 representation, because I already have the game, you know, I already have the 1-to-1. So make something new. Death Stranding, I'm playing through it right now before Tokyo Game Show, because there's going to be a lot of Death Stranding 2 there. There is a lot of this world that I do not think is going to be explained by the end of the game. You could do that in a movie. You know, that's where you can get into explaining things when it doesn't really matter as much for a game most of the time.
Yeah. I could see them like reusing and like analyzing his stool and urine samples in like a movie scene. That writes itself.
Make it okay. Here's my pitch. Make it about the not Sam, but about the people at Bridges that aren't Sam. You know, like, because obviously they're doing a lot of work, but they can't go out into the world except in very specific instances. So obviously the game, there has to be gameplay. So you can't just be stuck in a building the whole time, but you can have your action scenes of, you know, going out, trying to get, you know, find a dead body before it explodes or it creates a void out. That can be like the action scene against BTs, or the base gets attacked by the mules. For some reason, they're called mules. The base gets attacked by mules, like stuff like that. You can have the action scenes there, and then, you know, the meat and the potatoes of the movie can be about.
I think most of what that game is just very, not necessarily open-ended, but not necessarily explained world building. So it creates this large play field for a lot of shit that could happen. And in my opinion, I'm probably like 2/3 of the way through the game. Me and my wife play it, you know, here and there. Like you said, I don't think they're going to explain a lot of my questions in the end. So they don't really focus on any one part, but they do have this giant narrative world that they can kind of build around. And that leaves a lot for an interpretation, like a movie, to be made and be made well, I think.
That's why I'm so excited for Hideo Kojima's horror game, because he's very good at making the, like, if you're building a house, he builds a goddamn good basement, you know?
Yeah.
He builds a phenomenal, it's got a game room, it's got a movie theater, you know, it's got a bar, and it's got a gourmet kitchen with a private chef basement. And then he doesn't make any of the top floors. You know, there's the door, you open the door, and there's no house, and you build the house. You go in, you play the game, and your mind builds the house. You're there. I'm going to put the stairs here. I'm going to put the ceiling this high, you know? And like, by horrible analogy, that is like what Hideo Kojima does. And that is perfect for horror games, because Silent Hill does that so well, where they just, they build a really good basement. And then because they don't build the upper floors, you build the upper floors in your mind. And that is infinitely more scarier than any upper floors they could ever build to their house.
I think he would have made a really good horror game with PT. I wouldn't have necessarily liked it as a Silent Hill
Yeah.
title because I am very rigid in that
Mhm.
sense. But in the same way I can play Homecoming and have a real fun time with
Mhm.
it, I bet I would have had a really good time
Yeah.
with Kojima's PT or
And
Silent Hills.
my issue with all the Silent Hill nerds out there who are like all the shitty, Team Silent, only Team Silent can make a good Silent Hill game. Like that is like the prevailing thought in the Silent Hill community. I'm like,
Mm.
they're the only ones that can make a Team Silent Hill game. But I think you can theoretically have a good Silent Hill game that isn't made by
Yeah.
Team Silent.
I
It's
think
just
how it really goes is Team Silent are the only ones who have made good Silent Hill games.
exactly.
Is it?
Exactly.
But I think you could have a developer who understands the world and just wants to tell a story in it, which a lot of people have tried. But the problem is Konami.
Mhm.
Konami allows anybody who asks them to work on that series to do it.
Mhm.
So like Konami's not like, no, I mean, you've never produced a AAA game before. Obviously, you're not doing that. The company that made Shantae comes to fucking Konami and says, hey, can we make a Silent Hill game? And they're like, I don't see why not. Like, of course you can. That's just the most ridiculous and dumb thing I've ever heard of. They allowed a company that's never done an HD remaster to handle the Silent Hill HD remaster, as opposed to the company that made the Metal Gear Solid one,
And
which was widely believed to be good.
Ironically, the Bloober team of their choice for the Silent Hill 2 remake is maybe the best decision they've made out of all of their decisions.
Yeah.
And it's still a bad decision.
Exactly.
So I kind of sit here. We're at the end of this Silent Hill movie retrospective, right? We're not even talking about Silent Hill anymore.
We stopped a long time ago.
I think that my best takeaway is this. We're going to see the Silent Hill 2 movie soon. We're going to see something from it. Trailers. I don't know if they said it's not releasing this year, is it? I'm not 100% sure.
I have no idea.
Either way, we're going to see it soon, a couple months probably. All of the Silent Hill nerds I already know are not going to like it. Okay, you can't. There's no. They're not going to like the remake, even though everything I've seen from the remake in the past couple months has been far and away phenomenal compared to what I thought it was going to be like. And everything I've seen about Christoph Gans's filmmaking, i.e. the Silent Hill 1 movie, far and away phenomenal compared to what I was thinking it was going to be. So I'm excited. They got me.
Yeah.
They got me, and I'm not afraid to say it. But please, dear God, Christoph Gans, if you're listening, if you're watching this, please explain where the pizza came from in Silent Hill 2, the movie. If
not, it will be just an abhorrent failure.
If I can impart any bit of advice, okay, you need to explain the mysteries that have built up, okay, about this game in the 300 years since its release. And the biggest one we all want the answer to is, where the hell did Eddie get the pizza? And if you don't, I'm going to vehicular manslaughter you. You're done, buddy.
That's a really good threat, by the way. I'm going to
vehicular manslaughter you. I'm going to kill you with a car, but it's going to be a bit shaky on if I did it on purpose or if it wasn't an accident. And I'm going to get 5 to 10 years in prison, and I'm going to come out and I'm going to make a Silent Hill movie.
I mean, imagine if his time in prison actually informed making the Silent Hill 2 movie, and it becomes wildly, like, brutally cool.
Yeah, that could be what we see. That could be what we see. I could see
that happening. Now, from what I've seen visually, I don't have high hopes, but I do know this guy can make a good Silent Hill movie. He's done it in the past.
Keep in mind, like we said, that footage looks uncolor graded, and if it's uncolor graded, there is no VFX applied. And if your example of like I would imagine the only way I can think they could do fog that good is like put up a huge ass green screen in this end of the street and make that the fog barrier, and then fill the smaller area with as much fog as possible. So maybe they haven't done that kind of thing to the footage we've seen so far.
I hope you're right.
So it could be visually good. And like we talked about so many times, if anyone knows how to make a good visual example or a good visual implement of Silent Hill, it is Christoph Gans.
Yeah.
So show us, big man. I want to see it.
I'm excited in the sense that I would be excited to see if something is bad or good. So I am excited in that sense. I think I've become so jaded in the time since I first saw Silent Hill 1, and I'm going to work on myself to have my mind be open enough so that when I watch that movie, I can truly just judge it and say like, hey, this is a good movie or a bad movie, the same way that I did with the Silent Hill movie.
Yeah.
But that's going to take a lot of work. I'm going to have to see a therapist about what Konami's done to me.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to put the work in.
I wonder if you can find a therapist and be like, listen, I need you to deprogram all of the bad decisions Konami has made in my brain and get rid of them. You know, like trauma, make me trauma memory forget about all of the shitty Silent Hill games. Okay, make me trauma forget about Revelations 3D, whatever.
It's sad to say that would genuinely make my life better.
And then you can walk into the Silent Hill 2 movie and it'll be great. You know?
That's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping to go in and give it the same chance the Silent Hill 1 movie got, because it ended up surprising the hell out of a lot of us. So double fingers crossed.
Definitely. I'm looking at my notes here in terms of other things. I don't got much left. I did want to, I got a theory.
Okay.
I do want to kind of add this. I like to theorize about these games as much as the Silent Hill community does, but I'm always the correct one. So, prepare for new knowledge about the Silent Hill movie here.
Let's do it.
And I think this is mostly intentional on the part of Christoph Gans, that all of the creatures in the Silent Hill movie are dead, right? They are the dead people that have essentially come back to life. Is my theory here, because in Silent Hill 1, none of it's really explained, but and my theory kind of falls apart with Silent Hill 1, but I don't think they were intending it in Silent Hill 1, but it kind of works where like you go to these different locations and the monsters are sort of themed to the location. Nurses in the hospital.
Okay.
When you're outside kind of walking around, there's a
Dogs in
dog
the
house.
alleys.
There are dogs.
Yeah.
Birds. There are like cliff racer ass birds. The kind of thing where like, this is believably something that has like its corpse has risen, essentially. And when you look at someone like the janitor that becomes the little crawly guy in the movie, that makes perfect sense. That is the janitor's fate, essentially. And whether or not Pyramid Head is like his evolution, like Resident Evil ass, boss, phase 2 kind of thing, I think still works. Everyone that they run into, the nurses in the hospital again, are essentially the nurse that we didn't talk about that was in the movie that really didn't matter and had no reason to be in the movie anyway, except to say that, oh, look, it's like the nurse from the first movie. Anyway, she's in there.
This was really gross.
Also, while I'm on that, the nurses in the Silent Hill movie, I can get behind Pyramid Head.
Yeah.
I can get behind the mannequins. I can get behind the acid spitter things.
Yeah.
Why do they have the sexy nurses, man? Why?
Like, why would a little girl whose entire body was burnt in a fire create the most buxom, swimsuit model monsters?
Because everything else makes sense. Everything else makes sense. You could even read like I think the little babies on the ground crawling, those kind of feel like a class of school kids, The one spitting acid you could kind of read as like people who are very mean to Alessa. The nurses, man. I actually like I was watching the movie and I like put my head in my hands and like, because first time Pyramid Head showed up, I did the same thing, to be fair, but it
But he does look cool enough to where
they make up for it. I gotta say,
yeah.
make him sexy enough. But yeah, like,
But the nurses, it seems oddly out of because the rest of the movie has no real sexual themes. Even what's her name? Anna, the girl who
yeah,
gets de-skinned. There is a part where you can see her nude from the front and the back,
yeah,
but it's brutally shown.
yeah.
Like this is like not to be found sexual at all.
Mhm.
The nurses just they don't fit at all with they it almost seems uh and I'm not one of those people who is like, it's like, oh, you shouldn't have sexual themes and stuff. I think, uh, video games with attractive characters are great, and I do not argue that they should be made less attractive for any reason.
I've played
But
Lollipop Chainsaw, and I love Lollipop Chainsaw. Don't come
there
after
you
me,
go.
okay? I love Stellar
Absolutely.
Blade. I'm a big. I mean, it's not
Exactly.
Stellar Blade isn't a great game, but like good 8 out of 10 game. That's not the issue.
There you go. Yeah,
But it's just so
exactly. That's
stupid.
not. It's dumb, and it's like it's the same if like they cast Cindy Crawford as, and this is how old I am, as Claire Redfield. It would just be like there's no need for her to have triple D's coming out of the shirt or anything like that. It should make sense, and if you are going to make something that is going to be sexual, it should be sexual, and probably shouldn't also be like terribly disturbing and have people's skin being ripped off as well. I don't know.
And
It just doesn't. It doesn't fit for me.
It's so weird to me because I think Christoph Gans knows how to make things attractive. Like Sybil Benn in this movie, so hot.
Yeah,
they made Pyramid Head like. I'm
Without
not even
being
gonna say anything about Pyramid Head. I don't want this
shoulders. He's got abs.
video to be demonetized. But like,
yeah.
Damn. But like, and then but it makes sense, Like Sybil Bennett is badass because she's a cop and she is a good person and cares for these people, and her being a good person is what ends up making her being a badass. Pyramid Head, if you kind of take it as either the janitor kind of turning into it, or whatever, like still kind of makes sense. And then it's just the nurses are it feels like the executives are like, hey, these are the things you need to put in this movie so we can advertise it.
Here's our visual benchmarks that you need to hit. One of them is going to have to be this one. And
so there are, again, a lot of things in this movie that are decisions that I think we could have had a 9 out of 10, we could have very easily had a 9 out of 10. And in my head, I don't think about those parts. And so it's a 9 out of 10 in my enjoyment of it. But it's flawed in ways that I can't just forgive if I'm recommending it to someone, because those are flaws that are there.
That they will see.
Yeah. Okay. That is the Silent Hill movie. You got anything you want to mention?
One thing. I thought it was kind of cool that she had to memorize a map and run around the hospital.
That is cool, yeah.
Very true to the game. In the same sense, you haven't seen the Doom movie, but there's a scene where like it's 11 minutes of just first person shooting demons.
Oh, that's so sick.
Yeah, so like it felt like that kind of like this is an homage to the gameplay of the video game, which you never see.
Yeah.
It's always visual homages or little Easter eggs and stuff. So it was kind of cool that she had to memorize a map and she kept having to like remember, okay, I take a left here, take a right here. That is my process in playing a Silent Hill game. I thought that was cool.
Much the same as, her getting the knife from Anna and then being able to open up the painting. Like obviously in the game, you would probably see the painting first and then you'd go talk to her and get the knife. But that doesn't make as much sense in a movie. So, easier chain of events, but like that feels right. That feels like a puzzle that you'd get. Stuff like the Resident Evil TV show Try It, like when they're in the house and there's like there's something with the piano.
The kid is like there's puzzles that he's left for that. Yeah.
But it doesn't really fit as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything in like Welcome to Raccoon City that they do that's like really good.
The little keyhole with the balloon and the orphanage. That could work. I could see that.
Like in the Last of Us TV show, they do the Joel on one knee lifting up Ellie a lot. They don't do it a lot. Actually, I think they should have done it more because it's so common in the game. They do it like twice. And like, you know, I don't want to spoil The Last of Us here, but at the end of The Last of Us, him hoisting Ellie up and then she just runs away to something is like really jarring in the game. And it is not at all jarring in the movie because they only did it like once, or in the TV show because they did it like once before. But there's stuff like that. Like all these good video game media take the experience of the game and make a movie out of it instead of just putting what the characters do on screen. I think is the secret sauce there. Okay. I think that's about good. Silent Hill movie.
We've covered all of Silent Hill and several other subjects to completion.
Yes. It's almost to the point where I kind of want to title this like Silent Hill and other video game movies. Like, I don't know. I have to think about that because this is like
if you want to make some money on YouTube, call it the video game movie iceberg, and you'll be raking in the fucking ad revenue.
Make a thumbnail with a red line and an arrow somewhere.
Forget about it, dude. You're good.
Be perfect. Okay. Final thoughts. What would you rate this movie on a 5-star like letterbox rating system?
I'd give it, again, with the context that it is nowhere near accurate to the story of the show, or I mean of the game. I would still say as a movie, a property that I both recognize, that's different, and it's entertaining. 4 out of 5, probably.
4 out of 5.
Maybe.
I think that's exactly what I rated it after my first time watching. It has enough of the original game to still be a Silent Hill movie. Like it's still got that. I mean, it has really that Team Silent feel. We didn't really even talk about the music is like just the music from the game for the most part.
It was great. You have no idea. Like I said, I was an usher when that movie came out, and cleaning theaters with the credits playing and you're not here is just like, I've never been in a public setting where video game music was being played. So that was fucking incredible for me.
There's just a lot that they do that correctly assesses the vibe of Silent Hill. And the only way I think you can do that is if you have a love for these games. And that is the part that gives me hope for the Silent Hill 2 movie. That at least I think there will be love. Will it be love intelligently? We'll have to see. I don't know. But overall, I got to go. I think I'm somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5. I could give it a 4.5, I think, on my enjoyment. And I think potentially if there was like a re-edit, you know?
Yeah.
I think it could be a 5 easily for me. But there are just too many issues that I would have to excuse for it to be higher that I can't make it any higher.
Yeah. I mean, even I enjoy it so much, but like you have to admit it has film flaws outside of just like, oh, it's not like the game. It's like, no, this is just, continuity issues and stuff like that.
There are heights, it hits the 5 out of 5 height, but it doesn't stay there enough to be a 5 out of 5.
Yeah. I got you.
All right. So that is the Silent Hill movie. Thank you for watching. At some point, I think we're going to do Silent Hill 4. I still haven't beat it, man. I've started that game 4 times, and I still have not gotten through it. I fall off a couple hours in. It's only like an 8-hour game. Like I just need to play it.
You haven't even seen the worst of it yet, is the crazy part.
I don't want to spoil my thoughts on it, but like I was enjoying it the first time around. But it's just got like too grating because it feels like the same thing over and over. I got to beat it at some point. I want to beat it before I head to Japan because I'm heading to Japan Tuesday in a week.
It's so wild to think about, dude. That's so close.
We will have played by the time the next episode comes up. Silent Hill 2 remake.
Yeah.
We will have played Metal Gear Solid Delta, and we will have seen Death Stranding 2. I don't know if they're gonna have it playable at TGS. It might still be too early, but it'll be at TGS in some form. So we will be elevated beings by the next review.
True video game journalist.
Truly. I wanna hit up Revelations 3D. And you know what I want to do? I want to watch it in 3D.
Oh shit.
I don't know if it's possible, but I want to do it. I want to watch it in 3D.
There's got to be, you could probably go on eBay and find a 3D ready TV for a few $100 or something just for this gag.
And you know what? I'm expecting it to be horrible. And I think if I expect it to be bad, I'll get some enjoyment out of it. But we'll have to wait and see. Thank you for watching. This has been not review. It's called RevueLog now because all my other stuff is 2 words put together. Okay. And the name is like, we review my backlog of games that I'm very sad that I haven't played, which doesn't work. That now we're doing movies now. So it makes a little bit less sense, but whatever. This has been RevueLog. I never introed us. I'm Benny Gerkman.
I'm Jared from Avalanche Reviews.
Jared from Avalanche Reviews, if you didn't know. This has been RevueLog. Thanks for watching.